It's an honor to be here. I'm going to withhold any comments until next Tuesday, but it is a bad sign. I had someone, one of the council ladies, actually, the only council lady up here, just to give you a hint, she gave me back the shirts that her husband was on my committee. I guess that's a bad sign when you get all your campaign shirts back right after before you first take office. So
If she gives you your dog back, your car back, your pickup truck back, then I'd be, or your wife back.
I got a sign for you, too.
And then worry.
that's right. That's
What's
right.
that song? That's what I was, I don't know much country, so I was ad-libbing fast.
Yeah.
There's chocolate up here if anybody needs a fix.
Okay. Council, do you have any additions you'd like to make to the agenda at this time?
Mr. Mayor, staff has one.
Okay.
If we can do B as in boy 2, and we'll just put it as G dot North Loop.
Lovely. Anyone else?
Madam Clerk, did you revise it? You said you were yanking something off, I guess it was Main Street. Was it Ellen McRae and?
Oh, that's right.
So those are 9, B as in boy, and then those two names were mistakenly put on the agenda. So scratch them out. They're not up for renewal.
Bottom two.
Stephanie and who else? Who was?
Ellen McRae.
They're not up for renewal.
Just the bottom two.
Okay. Item A, financial update. Ms. Sarah Hefty.
Good afternoon. You have before you the October monthly update. Almost. Okay. So we were 10 months through the year, which is 83% for people who like percentages. And again, the past couple months we have split it out by the major funds. So that top section is our general fund, which is our governmental type items like the police department, recreation, public works, and administration. In the cash, you can see at the end of October, in our operating cash, we had over $4.5 million. And now that property taxes are coming in, that has increased at this point. Total unassigned fund balance, which is from the end of last year, is $6.3 million for the general fund. And then the next box shows some of our major revenue statuses. The first one being lost, which is our local option sales tax. You can see our budget is 2.4, and just moving to the right, our year-to-date that we've received is 1.7. We are a month in arrears in this, so we are, which is good news, we're slightly higher than last year, but the 71% of the budget received is because we'll receive some in January that will be booked back to 2016. Property taxes, like I said, we are starting to see that. We got a late start on that this year due to all the things that went on with Carroll County, but I can tell you in November we have seen quite a bit come in. So it looks like we're significantly down compared to last year. That's just a timing issue. Today is December, and this is at the end of October. So fines and forfeitures, the budget is 720. Year-to-date is a little over 300,000, and the difference in that from last year, it looks like it's down 48%. This is actually a change from our auditors. We are required to show this revenue differently. So part of it is now shown not as a revenue, but as kind of a flow through. We receive money from these people, and we have to immediately turn it around, and we call it our fund family. We have to turn it back to the state. And then the other portion of it, if they were fees, like court processing fees, we are now showing them elsewhere. They're just not under fines and forfeitures, and those kind of changes have been implemented in our 2017 budget.
A question on that. I had a person ask me the other day, why do we budget fines?
I mean, it's a source of revenue for us, and we can expect to.
But we don't know what that is.
Well,
I mean, there's 720,000, I think 720. Why budget 720, maybe 500,000?
Typically, they do that just based on a historical basis, that you know what you've received year after year after year, and you anticipate that it'll be the same.
Okay.
You know,
It's like any other one on this list. You don't know what they are actually going to be.
Now, they were concerned that we were gonna start being a, what they call it, a little whiskey or something of that nature, that we, because it's in the budget, we need to raise that kind of money. And I said, I don't think that's the case now, but I'll ask. So, thanks.
No, and I think that would be a management type topic. So, next one is fund status, and this is just your total revenues and total expenditures overall. And you can see the budget and the year-to-date percentage of budget. When I say 83%, that's where we typically try to see that in line. The revenue, we've only received 79%, but with property taxes, like I said, we got a little bit of a late start. But, so when you see the end of November numbers, I think we'll be right on line with that. In both columns, we are higher than last year. I'm sorry, I was looking at water sewer. Revenue is slightly down. Again, I think we had a later start than last year on the property tax, and our expenses are slightly higher than last year, but we're still within line of our budget. On water sewer, the next section, our operating cash is at a negative $385,000. Again, this is not what it says in our bank account. This is in our pooled cash. Our different funds are allocated their respective amount from our pooled cash fund. So the amount allocated to water sewer based on revenues and expenses is a negative $385,000, which is actually better than it was last month. Total investments is 2 million, excuse me. Our total outstanding bond is 33 million, and our unrestricted net position or equity in that fund is 1.4 million. Water and sewer sales, you can see the budget, the year to date. This one as well, some of the revenue we receive in January is actually attributable to this year, so we're running a little bit behind, not necessarily as far as production-wise, but we might run a little bit in arrears. I don't want to say a month, it's not a full month. But you can see we're higher than last year. On the fund status there, total revenue and total expense again, you can see our total revenue and total expense. Again, we're kind of close to the 83%, and both in that line item are higher. Revenue is 6% higher than last year, and our expense is 44% higher than last year. We did have the excess water purchases and repairs that we didn't have in the year before. And lastly, solid waste. Our operating cash, this is the same thing. This is not what the bank account says. It's part of the pooled cash. It's a negative 250,000, and our net position is actually negative as well, negative 113,000. The solid waste revenue, you can see we're at 71% of the budget. We will receive some of that in January and put back into this year. And we are slightly higher than last year, and the same with our overall revenue and expenditure. Any questions?
Just a clarification. The fines and forfeitures, the reason it's so different is because we maybe previously weren't accounting for the money that isn't ours to keep. We get a portion, and then the state, whatever, whether it's a traffic fine or whatever, it goes to the state.
Correct, it's twofold. Part of it was the money that we receive is not ours to keep. It's more like a withholding tax from an employee. We take the money in, but we turn around right away and pay it back. So that we didn't want to record as a revenue. And then the other part of it is fees that aren't necessarily fines, court processing fees and other things like that needed to be held in a different account. So that was something pushed down from our auditors.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Item B, Public Works, Pete Zarbonis. Pete, we finally got some rain. I know you're happy.
Yes, I am.
We're all happy.
Praise the Lord. Mr. Mayor, Council, I'd like to give you an update on the drought. Give you a little quick chronology here. Back on 11/15, I met with the branch chief and our environmental engineer that's responsible for Villa Rica, in Villa Rica at the reservoirs. We went around and they saw firsthand the impact to our water impoundments. We had had a joint meeting prior to this. It was a teleconference with all the other systems that were affected by the drought. And during that meeting, we had indicated to the state that we may entertain asking for a variance to go even more stringent from level 2 to level 3. Because of that, that's why they came out on site and wanted to take a look for themselves and see, from what I understand, with some of the other local communities that are under a level 3 right now, that they have done that in each of those cases. So I was pleased that they came out and actually saw for themselves. On 11/16, the very next day, we reduced the flow at the plant. We had been treating somewhere in the neighborhood of 900,000 to 1 million gallons a day. We cut the flow back to 500,000 gallons a day. Some of that was needed because we ran into some problems with the intake. We have the leaf fall happening right now. We're getting some leaves that come in the intake. And we also had a surprise where we couldn't figure out why the water had tapered off, but there happened to be a very large catfish that was in the intake, and it was restricting the intake. So after we went out and cleaned all that up and freed that up, we got back to a more uniform flow. This causes some impact at the water plant too, because we felt that we had to go to 1 filter instead of 2 because of the lower flow. That 1 filter wants to operate a little bit better, more efficiently. So we did that. We wanted to utilize, to the best of our ability, the water that was in Lake Paradise. So from the 23rd through the 27th, there's a built-in siphon in the dam there. And it's my understanding that historically, when we've been in times of drought, that siphon has been used in the past to pull about 2 foot of water out of that lake. And that's exactly what we did. So we drew it down about 2 feet. I think what we realized from that was probably we recouped probably in the neighborhood of 6.5 million gallons by doing that. So with all that being said, our staff gauge, when we measure where the lake is right now, full pool's at 13 feet. We got down around 9 feet. So when we did the siphon, we got back to 9.5, and then when we were blessed with these rains this morning, it was 9.9, which is great. Calculating that rough terms, we probably have approximately 2 foot of water on top of that second intake valve. That's about roughly 20 days of water. Again, if we go to the third intake, hopefully we'll have another 20 days of water there as well. But as we get lower in elevation, it causes us some concern because we're kind of getting in the area of a little bit of the unknown. But I'm very pleased with the fact that we're moving in the right direction. For the month, I'm also pleased to say that even though that the level 2 was announced middle part of the month, it looks like we have been able to realize about a 7% decrease in demand, which is great. Now, I do want to say this: as we've reduced the flow, we're only producing about a third of the amount that we're permitted for. And as we go from the million that we were doing, and we're going down to 500,000 to meet our demand, that means that it shifts the amount of water that we purchase from the Carroll County Water Authority. So as we go down, we're going up in the other direction, which of course costs money. But we went from last month to an average demand of about 1.82 million gallons a day to an average of this month is going to come in at 1.7. So that's going in the right direction right now too. I think David will speak here a little bit more about if we go to a level 3. we have to approach the state, and we can't just arbitrarily be more stringent than the state. They changed the law last year, and what they require is that we have to request a variance. There's an application process for that. And we also have to show a good cause to require that. So once we submit the paperwork to them and they take a look at it, they have to respond to that within 5 business days. And some of the requirements that the state puts on us, there is what's called a drought, a drought strategies menu that they have, and they have many things that we have to adhere to on that menu. And one of them will be, when we talk a little bit later here about the surcharge, that's a requirement by the state that they're gonna put on us. But that's where we're at right now, and, you know, hopefully, it looks like the forecast, even this weekend, looks like we may be blessed with a little bit more rain coming in, and every little bit will definitely help. Hopefully, we'll just be able to inch our way forward and get out of this drought and get into the springtime and hopefully get into a wetter spring. But that's where we're at right now.
Thank you, Pete. I don't know if this is a question for you or for the city manager, but how much water are we purchasing from Carroll County as of today?
As of today, let's see, their average purchase right now for this month was about 1 million gallons a day, a little over 1 million.
What was it last month in November?
About 800,000, because we were doing 1 million gallons, trying to produce as much as we could to offset the cost from buying from them. But then in this month, we've had to go in the other direction. We've had to reduce our production rate, which means we've had to buy more from them. So it's just kind of going the other way.
Thank you. I had asked the city manager to look at just exactly what would be required. I think we're blessed to have the rain we've had the last couple of days, and as Pete said, I think we're going to get some rain here in the not too distant future. But I had asked David to look at what would be required to raise us to a level 3 drought status. So, David, if you would, if you don't mind sharing that.
Exactly. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple things that are salient to Pete's comments. This drought started in April of this year. So the fact that we've had, some couple inches of rain and we potentially be blessed. We went, I believe, 62, maybe 63 days with no rain. And right now it would take about, give or take, plus or minus about 15 inches right now to catch up to where we should be. Keep in mind, it's ironic that this time last year we had a pretty precipitous winter, and we're seeing the direct opposites. And so I don't want folks to say, wow, great, it rained. We are still upside down in our production. So when Pete gives you numbers, it says, we have 20, give or take days of water. What that means is that, yes, at a reduced rate, because we don't want our reservoirs to go dry, nor can we draw down far without having those filters sort of clog up. It's almost, I'll just give you an example, when you pull the plug on your bathtub and you sort of pull down that drain, what's really at the bottom? A lot more sediment, things like that. And of course, the big question I have for Pete is why we didn't get invited to the catfish fry. But I'm just, so we will not run out of water. I want to emphasize we will not run out of water. We have agreements in place to buy water with Carroll County Water Authority. We've met with them. on a couple occasions. We're meeting with them again real soon. We also have an agreement in place to buy water from Douglas County, so we will not run out of water. But that's where I'm leading to is the financial impact. I had a conversation today with Haralson County Water Authority, and there's only a handful of folks that are at level 3 plus. So the next level, for instance, right now, and this is interesting, so the state went to level 2. So level 1 was just go out and let everyone know we're in a drought and educate them, all right? Level 2 means that, really for the most part, if you're residential, we want you to turn off those sprinklers on specific days and only water during certain days. When we started ramping up our education and asking for the mandatory cutbacks, we initially saw an increase. Then the state kicked in with their level 2, which gave us some enforcement authority, and finally we actually have seen, but quite frankly I think folks are just shutting their sprinklers off. There's no need except for new plantings. But as you drive by, for instance, if you see construction, new construction, all those commercial entities, they're still allowed to go full tilt. They're still out there spray washing the parking spaces to get them spiff and clean. They're spray washing the roofs so they can clean them up. And in a construction, in a commercial entity, that's all still perfectly legal. It's not that they have to be cleaning their parking spaces, but it's not prohibited. So in the meeting with the state, the only way that they say they will authorize the city of Villa Rica to go to more stringent guidelines of enforcement is that we have to put in place tiered conservation rates. I had some questions as to, why was Haralson County and some of those that are supplied through Haralson County, like Bremen, Tallapoosa, Waco, Buchanan, why were they able to go to level 3? Well, first and foremost, they did run out of water. Secondly, they already had tiered conservation rates in place and did not have to change the rates. So we have taken time to model our current rates and have looked at some potential tiered rates that we would, with the council's blessing, move forward with an application and get it ready and potentially submit it to the state. And I'm going to go ahead, Madam City Clerk, if you can go ahead and put it online if you haven't already. I know you have this electronically, Ms. Sarah, but if you'll give that to Pete and Sarah. And so we looked at this from a finance point at this point. So once I know y'all have it, I'll walk you through here. As part of the larger rate study that the staff is doing, we have already been looking and modeling our existing rates because obviously at some point the council is going to want to hold their council workshop on senior rates, and that affects water rates. You're going to want to look at your enterprise funds. So again, staff is already modeling that, so I'm going to make reference to some of that as I go through. Starting on the left, you have the number of customers, and each of those customers are in groupings. The first is 560 senior customers, and their average use in our billing system is about 3,500 gallons. Senior means that they're receiving the senior discount. The next is the average residential. Those are the single-family homes. From there, you have 3 multi-residential. Then you have the next larger category, which is commercial, and then industrial. So that's just shy of about 6,000 customers. When you look at current, off of the most recent billing cycle, we recoup roughly about $250,000 of billing on a monthly basis. And that shows you under the current rates for water only what we're billing for. You then see 3 more columns, and those are modeled columns based on a 5% across the board increase on water, a 7% increase, and a 9% increase. So you see that if your current billing right now is about $220,000, under a 5% increase, it's going to go to about $233,000 based on the current 7%. It jumps to about $237 with some change, and then 9% really about $242 and some change. Now the question is, where's all that money going? Well, forget the fact that you're upside down on the enterprise fund. Let's not even worry about that right now. The fact is that you're buying water, and you're going to have that surcharge and that increase because it's always going to be cheaper to produce your own water. So you're buying water, and you're already, of course, then billing at a loss. So if we get to the point, let's say that we are in this drought for the long haul, and there is no significant long-term changes so far that Peachtree City National Weather Service is telling us about, and we do have regular briefings. And when I tell you regular, usually once, sometimes twice a week. And all of the water systems are getting together again in January for another in-person update and talk. So if we're in it for the long haul, this city is looking at basically if we have to buy almost 100% of our water, between $50,000 to $60,000 a month of increased cost. Then you see the column that says proposed. I've been doing some modeling on water rates, tiers, things of that nature. This is interesting enough. The current 5% tier rate just happens to be very close to where my model rates are. And we, again, when you have the workshop, you'll hear and understand a lot more of that modeling and the fact that it's the sewer area that probably will have the largest impact. It's not really water. When we all talk about our enterprise funds as to where you're really losing money, yes, you're losing money on sanitation, but you really lose a lot of money on solid waste. So the proposed, it's there, but just know that if the council said, well, let's look at tier rates at 5%, I'm going to be back here most likely in January if that's when that workshop's held, and that modeling's actually going to be right about there. So you're actually not going to gain anything or take anything away, if you will. Now the reason I point that out is that if you do tiered conservation rates, when the drought's over, the public would expect you to back off of conservation rates, most likely. You could stick with them, but usually the public's saying, well, the drought's over. Well, what are you going to back off of if you already have adjusted 5% on an annual basis, just trying to catch up with the fact that you're in the hole, upside down, if you will, in your enterprise funds. When you look at the bottom, you see the monthly increase, and at the end of the day, that's what really matters, is what's it going to do to the pocketbook. If I'm a customer, what is the impact going to be financially to me? And you'll see the 5%, the 7%, and the 9% impacts based on the average water use of those tiers, based on each of the individual breakouts. And our CFO is here. We've worked collectively to put the model together. The council at this point really has to decide, does it want to go for more stringent conservation efforts regarding water than what we have right now dictated to us by the state? If the answer is yes, then automatically the council's then going to have to go to B, which is, okay, what are those tiered conservation rates going to be that we're going to put in our application? Keep in mind, when you file an application with the state, they have the 5 days to respond, And if they don't approve us, we can always appeal, we can go back and modify, we can continue to change. But if the answer to A is yes, then automatically it triggers B. So you basically have, no pun intended, but two-tier decision here to make. So question A is, do you want to impose to our customers more stringent water conservation efforts? And that's going to impact more so everything from residential to commercial, but certainly it'll affect more commercial. And then if the answer to that is yes, then the larger discussion is, where are you going to go with your tiered rates? So back to you, Mr. Mayor.
I got a question on your chart here, since this is the first time I've seen it. The number proposed for seniors has nothing in it. Why is that?
Nothing
In the
it.
green spot.
Oh, because when I'm modeling rates, I'm doing just rates. I have nothing to do with the senior, so you have to apply those. So I'm not modeling anything based on whether or not the council's going to give a discount or not, because there's no way that I would know whether or not the council is going to change or keep senior rates. So I'm just looking at it from a holistic financial of cost versus expense and expenditures.
I have two questions. Well, actually, one is a comment. Would you define for the sake of the audience what a tiered rate is?
A tiered rate is two things. One is you have use tiers, which is right now we actually have a base connect fee. Basically, it's a fee for you to be connected to our system. But in the current rate structure, we actually give you water in addition to that rate. So when I come back to you in January, I'm going to request that those be completely separate. Two, the tiered rates are that when you look at levels of usage, for instance, 1,000 gallons, up to 1,000 gallons or up to 2,000 gallons, you break out the actual consumption in tiers. You currently have tiers, but they're very large. Your current tiers, the first threshold is up to, is it 2,000, 24, or is it the 4,000? It's very large. I just didn't bring that sheet with me, so.
Basically, the more you
1,400.
use, you would pay a higher rate.
You get more signaling, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so right now, you pay that current connect fee, and you get 1,000 gallons with it, and then your next takes on and goes up to
1,000 to 4,900 pays
yeah.
a particular rate. Residential.
which is a whole lot of water. So basically, you stay within that tiered rate within the the average seniors using 3,500, but it only really affects the residential customer, say 4,500. They always stay within the tier. They're not going to be affected with the current tier rates we have. In January, I'm going to propose to change those tiers substantially.
Okay, and my question is this. Well, it was in my head. It'll come back to me. Sorry about that.
Is the monthly increase for any of them on the bottom, is that per thousand?
That's just your total bill, what your increase would be per month.
Based on 3,500 for seniors?
Just, your
Based on
total
average
bill would go
usage.
up 72 cents if we did the 5% overall increase.
Based on average use.
Based on the average use, it is.
Average
Based on-
use.
Based on 3,500 for the seniors?
Correct, this 3,500, yes.
I have a comment to make, as usual. David, thank you for putting this together, and staff. I appreciate you doing this on a short term, and I've heard this from a lot of the constituents. We need to be proactive rather than reactive on our drought situation. And the fact of the matter is, we're buying more water from Carroll County, and that's going to cost us more money. So that's why we're doing this. But I want to make it very clear that the mayor feels like that if there is a situation where the drought lessens, that we eliminate or reduce this cost. If we're going to sell it to the public, that we're doing this because we're in a drought and we need to offset the cost of the water we're buying from Carroll County, then if that should reverse, and I pray that it does, then I don't want this just to stay in place. It's kind of like a SPLOST referendum. Once you pass it, it never goes away. And so I would hope that that the council would see it the same way. And like I said, hopefully if the drought goes away, then so does the increase.
I think we just have to be honest and transparent and say, why are we doing it? Are we doing it just because of the drought, or are we saying our enterprise funds are upside down and we're in trouble and we've got to raise rates? And we got to be honest about why we're doing it, and that'll make the difference on what we do afterwards. The question I had was this: if we went to a level 3, which we have to have the state's approval and everything on, it doesn't seem like it would, well, it's going to be bad for everybody, but are there commercial businesses that would destroy?
It would definitely affect commercial, some commercial, for instance, on the construction side, right now they have a free pass. They go out, I'll give you an example, a donut place that just finished construction without giving the name and stomping on them. They were out spray washing their finished construction, so they want the parking lot to look good and get their certificate of occupancy and move on. Then there was a gas station next door that said, hey, we want to, spray wash our metal roof and get it spick and span and paint it and make it look pretty. I mean, the reality is we're just going to have to tighten it up and be okay with dirty roofs and dirty sidewalks, and but yes, there will be groups that will be affected if they get their water through the city of Villa Rica, and that's very critical.
Okay, well, that.
And so that I can expand on
In a more severe
that.
way, then our parking lot isn't as clean. We still have some residue. And you can understand why those businesses would want to do that. When you're doing your opening day, you're going to want to look good. And they're probably accustomed to doing that. So maybe they're just not aware that we'd like them to tighten up if they can. But car washes, whatever. I mean, what happens to businesses? Does it depend on if they have recycled water? I'm trying to figure out, in making the decision of whether we want to do this or not, we got to know the consequences of our decision. So that's what I'm trying to find out.
Correct. And at one point, I didn't bring it with me. I know I've sent it to you all, but I'll pull up the level 3 and let you know, because it's and I can also post it online. But as I'm bringing that up to go to the mayor's comments, that's exactly why I put that proposed out there, is because I think that the public would feel duped. We know that we've all been talking about enterprise funds. Last year, the governing body raised those rates 5%. We've talked about having to have meetings and look at the rates, look at the enterprise funds, look at the senior citizens. I don't know what the council may or may not do, but I knew what my basic proposal was going to be for January, to start to try to make some incremental recommendations to fix this gap. And when I tell you the gap on water is roughly about 22%. You can't accomplish that 1 year. So it just happens that my modeling for the proposal is very, very close to the 5%. If you put in tier for conservation, and as I said, if the drought's over, if what you go right now with the 5%, the public's going to expect you to go right back, and then you've lost the potential ground of the bigger issue. You are selling candy bars that cost you $1 to make, and we're selling them at, is it 46 or 56 cents? What's the? Do you remember, Sarah, your payday?
Yes, I can pull it up.
And I'll pull the other up very quickly here.
let's see, we're selling this, but it's costing this to make it, right? This isn't quite the size of the ones you gave us.
And while you're looking that up, I agree with what you said, but I think the way we sell it is what's important. If we're going to sell this, that we're trying to recover the cost because of the drought we're in, then that's one thing. But if we're going to propose in January to go up to 5% anyway, then I just want to make sure the public doesn't think they've been, what you said, using your term, duped.
It was, we buy it for $1 and we sell it for 76 cents. And the senior, we buy it for $1 and we sell it for 55 cents.
Well, now seniors deserve that.
All right, so for instance, when the state approved the current level 3, they came back and gave very, very clear directives. For instance, any restaurants, institutional establishments had to change to paper products for serving meals so that they couldn't wash them. They said no watering of ball or recreational fields except for watering of pesticides and herbicides on turf. They also stated that any non-essential commercial water uses were restricted. So that meant that that they just couldn't go out and wash the hard surfaces, parking lots, sidewalks. They couldn't wash the outside of the building. All of that was restricted. So you're going to have commercial companies, but again, it's where they get their water from. If they buy it from us, we can enforce that. If they go outside of Villa Rica, we can enforce. So for instance, my conversations with Haralson County, this is fascinating, their words, not mine. Haralson County is the water authority, but they could only control their customers, not the folks buying water from them. So, but collectively, they all put in the application. But that was interesting that that I learned today in that conversation.
Getting back to what I have asked on many, many occasions, what's it cost to produce 1,000 gallons of water?
We've run those numbers. You got that, Ms. Hara? We presented it, I guess, 2 months ago.
Yes. Pulling it up. $5.13 for every 1,000 gallons. That's when we produce, not when we buy.
Okay, when we buy it,
And when we buy, I don't know where I've done those calculations, but I think we've had this discussion.
We have?
Yeah, we did, I had it somewhere.
How much is Carroll County charging us?
Well, they charge us $216 per thousand, but then you have to account for all the overhead, which is your people, the depreciation on your system, your administrative costs. You have we have water sewer fund transfers money to the general fund once a month to cover administration costs, because if it was a standalone utility, you would expect that it would have a finance department, HR, legal, those types of things. So you have to account for all of that, not just the cost of the pure water.
David, I want to turn my mic on first. Your proposed rate would be a 5% increase, correct?
It's actually not right on 5%. It just happens to model out there. And again, I'm looking at basically asking the council to look at an annual increase every year moving forward until you can right the ship, which is upside down.
I understand, but what is that number? Is it 7%, 6%, 5%?
It's just not across the board, because I'm dealing with tiers. I'm modeling not on percentages. I'm modeling on usage. So there's not, I mean, I can calculate out what this particular is right here, and it'll come up with a percentage, but I'm not modeling with that percentage. And it's, you got rounded 6% here.
Right.
I've never plugged in a number
Right.
of a percentage.
Here's where I was headed with that. If you're going to propose that increase to right the ship or to get the ship headed in the right direction, would it be reasonable then, since we have to make this application to the state, to make the application knowing that we're going to increase it 5%, and then say that if the drought worsens and we do go into a drought, a level 3 drought, that we're going to raise it another 2% or 3% or whatever that number is, rather than pass a 5% increase along now. And you can call it what it is, but people are going to say that they're being, using your term again, being duped, knowing that we're going to, possibly increase the water rates. Look at that when we come to it, but already have everything in place with the state if the drought worsens. Is that reasonable?
Again, not knowing what the council may or may not do, I think in order to again, if the council wants to move forward, I'd strongly encourage them to look at the 7 or 9% column, and then to be able to pull back once you're out of drought. You've got a cash register system going on right now, so the fact that we've substantially pulled back, and so we're down by almost 67%, give or take 68% of water production. So we're feeling it right now, and have been since we've gotten the situation. So I would encourage the council to look at a 7 or 9%, and then be able to pull back as soon as we're out of this drought. But that's a financial decision, but otherwise, you go to your rainy day fund and just make a decision that you're just going to make up the difference with your fund balance, and that's always an option.
I got a practical question. Out on Edge Road is a big old water truck running up down Edge Road between Liberty Road and the gas company, washing the road. Where's that water coming from?
They actually have a City of Villa Rica water meter, and under level 2, because they're construction, they're 100% legit and can do that.
Wash the road.
Yes, sir.
There's puddles of water on both sides of the road, and they're still washing the road.
Yes, sir. We have no authority to stop them. Level 2, and I'll say for what it is. I mean, I love Georgia, love Villa Rica, but this was all like just window dressing. I raised the flag and said, folks, as soon as Lake Lanier starts going down and folks' boats are on the bottom of the thing, then the state will say, hey, let's move to level 2 because it's all feel good. In Metro Atlanta and a lot of those neighborhoods where they're heavily watering, but again, we're past the base growing season. So my opinion is, hey, this is all for show at this point. No one's really suffering. The governor said he was going to build multiple reservoirs, during his term. We've got, one built so far. The reality is, Carroll County, God bless them, they did just like, what's the county to the south? It starts with a C. And is it Coweta? Where's the airport? It's in that's Clayton County. That's the one I knew it was a C. They built reservoirs and things of that nature. So again, we will not run out of water. They have not turned on all of their wells yet. The actual, I wish we could, have wells, but everything that I've been told is that our ground quality water for wells isn't to the quality of being able to produce water. It's the natural springs. You go out to Spring Lake, it's got plenty of water. It's spring fed. Our issue is it's the surface water. And so if you've read the paper recently, you saw, the report about the growth. Folks have been saying about the growth. So you have to make long-term decisions for the survivability, or just say, we're just going to buy water, and that's how we're going to make it, and that's fine. The authorities will sell you as much water as you would like to buy.
Until the tap runs dry.
Exactly. I mean, we're in the middle of water wars. You know, we got that federal judge trying to work out the deals right now. I was just down in Florida for a couple days in Thanksgiving. They got plenty of water, lots of water down there. In fact, I took a boat tour. They got lots of water, but our mussels they apparently don't. But that's what it comes down to is Atlanta was just built in the wrong place. If we fix that, but for us, we don't have a sustainable water source, so we really have longer, more deeper discussions. Deep, I like that reservoir. That the council's going to really have to roll up the sleeves, and we need to work together to figure out what you all want to do for the longevity of the city and its water supplies.
What is the desire of the council? Pete, did you have something you wanted to add?
I just, one thing that I think might be important.
Can you come up to the mic?
One thing that I think might be important to note is, it's my understanding, if in fact we're granted this variance, it's not an open-ended thing. They have us revisit it. They may grant us 60 days with this variance, which means we'll have to demonstrate again the need for it. So.
Thank you for that clarification. What's the desire of the council?
Is there any reason why we should not push for a level 3? I know we have to comply by redoing our tiers. I don't know, I mean, I'm looking at this, which is more than that, right? This is also including like a rate increase. I mean, what's the bottom line? If we want to go to level 3, what's the bottom line of what will be the biggest changes? Other than, I know that we're not out watering at all then. Well, I shouldn't say at all.
Your biggest thing is even on the, the biggest is going to be, you're going to probably, if you go out to eat, that's the first thing you're going to notice. No water on the tables. You're not going to be offered water. You're not going to have plates. You're going to have disposable, things. Your
Not
car
gonna have plates,
car
they
washes will
can't
be
use-
closed
they
down.
can't-
To my knowledge, your car
Okay.
washes will be closed down.
Okay.
Pete, on the reclaimed water, you have the level 3 just happen to be handy? I didn't bring mine.
Well, that's the question I asked. Is this going to destroy somebody's business? And I never heard that. Now you're telling me that because I guess they don't use the totally recycle, I think that has to be taken
I
into
don't know
consideration.
which businesses here do or do not use the reclaim. I don't know that
Because
firsthand.
otherwise they're good, right?
So,
If they're recycling?
luckily, you brought the document
Okay,
that I
In
didn't.
the rule, under professional exemptions, and this is for, related to outdoor water use, the following commercial outdoor water uses are exempt from the outdoor water use restrictions of this rule. A, pressure washing.
Is that at 3 or 2?
This is, I believe this is under 3.
Yeah, because we're at 2 now. We need to know what's going to happen if, what would be the impact on residents and businesses? Washing their driveway is not a big deal. But if they can't function as a business, that's a big deal.
Let me get another document.
I guess this is a pertinent question too, knowing the state moves at great speed at approving all these things. Once we make application, what can we anticipate as far as how long it will be before we'll even get an answer?
5 days. They're required.
5 days?
Mandated. Yeah, believe it or not, I called them on something else the other day, and I got a 2-hour response. Unheard of. But they're mandated. They have to turn those around. We have special phone numbers right now. We have special email addresses. So they have
Wow.
to respond back within 5 days. So realistically, if we put our application together, we would have a rather quick turnaround on whether or not they would approve it or not. they told us very, very specifically, okay, so, all right, here we go. If we've got level 2, level 3, I found the document. All right, during drought, level 3, everything that's in level 1, level 2 is already a given. General outdoor watering, outdoor irrigation for purposes of planting, growing, managing, or maintaining ground cover trees, shrubs, or other plants as described in the rules is not permitted. Right now, under level 2, you can. Specific categories of outdoor use, the outdoor water uses, they still will have some if it is irrigation of personal food gardens or actual anything that has to do with personal food gardens. You'll be able to do hand watering with a hose on an automatic cutoff or handheld, but you're going to give specific hours. I mentioned the athletic fields, any public turf, grass, anything. Basically, the city will not be doing any outside watering, even if it does it with the well, just because people don't know the difference. There are some exemptions for reclaimed water use. However, we actually have to get specific guidance, and they're going to provide us guidance. So on anything that's a current car wash, we actually have to go to them and basically identify it and get guidance. There'll be installation, maintenance, or calibration of irrigation systems will still be allowed, provided that it's done by a professional landscaper or golf course. You'll still have to do the public information campaigns. Glasses of water provided to restaurant customers only upon request. You'll have to distribute retrofit kits and water-saving devices to customers. We already have those. We do that. These kits and devices may include but not limited to, so I won't bore you with the long list. We'll have to provide technical assistance and outreach programs to targeted high users, trying to get them to come into compliance. We'll have to reduce system pressure, which won't really be an issue here, unless such reduction will create unsafe water supply conditions. There will be mandatory pool cover requirements so that you just cannot evaporate the water. We will have to implement a drought surcharge program, and that's the one part that they're telling us aggressively, not going to approve it. So it says you must implement a drought surcharge program or a tiered conservation rates. The others that are already had that tiered rate. We just simply don't have it yet. We have to have all suspension of street cleaning programs. We have to implement or accelerate leak detection and repair programs. We have to impose monetary penalties or terminate water services to customers to reduce outdoor water use due to excessive application, outdoor leaks, improper irrigation, or similar reasons. There are some professional exemptions. The following commercial outdoor water uses are exempt from the outdoor water use restrictions. There's two rules of thought on this. This will be interesting. Pressure washing. If your primary business is pressure washing, you will be allowed to pressure wash, but then there's more stuff. Permanent car wash facility provided that is connected to a sanitary sewer system of a political subdivision or local government authority and recycles used wastewater.
Or recycles, not and.
Or recycles used wash water. A construction site will still be able to utilize water, and then watering in pesticides, herbicides on turf or other activities. So obviously when they go out, mix it with water and chemicals. Those are water-specific businesses, and there's only 4 categories, and that's it. Everything else is off limits. But I can't tell you about our current car washes right now.
Ladies and gentlemen. Lady and gentlemen.
We'll post this later tonight.
Based on what I'm hearing, my gut feeling is we need to ask to go to 3. Now, like they said, they may only give it to us for 60 days. you know, somebody may feel differently, or maybe you'll present, I want to make sure we weren't going to put people out of business. You have to take that into consideration.
We didn't before.
Since this is a non-voting type meeting, you have to
Right,
present that.
this is just
Tuesday night.
It's just
do you
trying
want
to
it
get
put on the
approval.
agenda for Tuesday night?
Because once I have some guidance, we can start immediately finalizing the application and have it ready to go.
What is your desire?
We went to level 3 several years ago. That's
How
when
did
we
it work
found
out?
out about some of the commercial people over in Industrial Park using the water to cool their systems with. They asked the big question, were they exempt? And some of them were and some of them were not. That was a lot of talk and a lot of stipulations, but I think back then the bottom line is that we're very few, if no businesses at all, was totally went out of business because of this. There was some effects of it, obviously, but not totally went out of business.
Question is, with the weather system changing the way it is now, do we need a level 3?
They're
You got a quarter?
forecasting a dry winter.
Flip a quarter.
It's okay this week.
Last week, this week?
And it doesn't have to go on for a long period of time. I imagine if all of a sudden the forecast changes and we don't end up in a bad situation, in water, we have more water than expected, we could very well, go right back to the state? I'm assuming a fairly quick turnaround? David?
If you could also do the same thing by simply going down on the water usage, the average, I should say, of where the tiers are.
For instance, the weather report is for Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, rain. Thursday, rain. So the pattern has changed somewhat.
Let me try to speed this up just a little bit. I think what we need to do
Please do.
is, we can discuss this on Tuesday night, but we need to give staff direction as to where we want to go with this. And, we can discuss it for the next 10 hours, but we're still going to discuss it Tuesday night. The question is, do we want to direct staff to come back to us on Tuesday night with any additional questions that you may have, and then we can talk about it then? Otherwise, I say we move on.
I
about
think we're
this?
premature on level 3.
How about this too, to possibly save time? Can't we request it? And they give it to us, do we necessarily have to put it in effect? Or do we have it in our pocket if we need it?
Once we actually get approved and roll it out, we can always request to rescind, but we'll still have to adhere. My understanding, it's not something we can, hold indefinitely in our back pocket, but, Pete spoke with them. I mean, if you have heard differently than that, let me know, please.
So, yes or no? I'm sorry.
This is not a voting meeting. Just, everybody shake your head this way or that way, and I will move forward. No. Coach?
He's shaking all over.
Yeah.
Yes. Leslie, yes. Okay, so it will be on the agenda for Tuesday night. Directions to staff is that we bring this tiered rate to the council meeting, and the only question I heard that we didn't address was David, is it possible to find out which car washes in town recycle as opposed to this?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Would that would answer your question. Any other questions for staff before we move on? Okay, moving along. Item B2.
Briskly.
All right, Mr. Mayor, our lovely project of the North Loop. The gift that keeps on giving. So, staff will be having a meeting with the State Department of Transportation. They have done all their modelings on both ends of the North Loop, where the North Loop connects into 101 Industrial and where it comes out on 61 Dallas Highway. All of their modeling and their guidance from the state have said that they want to do roundabouts at both intersections. Now, that really shouldn't be a surprise because for the last 12 months, I think I've put out maps that I think Ken Denny actually created from early indications information I got that has always showed a roundabout on both ends. And that's because on preliminary discussions, the state has always said that all traffic figures presented to this date support their model for a roundabout, not a traffic light. Now, the reason that I'm putting this before the council is because guess what? When they did the original design of those intersections way back when, all of the engineering was done for a traffic light. Well, fast forward to 2016, we're moving forward, and the GDOT is now saying they really need to be roundabouts. So the council can try to, stand firm and say, no, we want traffic signaling devices at those intersections. Or it can say, okay, we're interested in roundabouts. The state thinks, it's actually a federal mandate. They're required to evaluate all intersections moving forward for roundabouts first before they put traffic signals. And therein lies the gift that keeps on giving. The engineering would have to be updated because, and you're talking about $50,000 per intersection. So you're talking about a impact of about $100,000 in engineering that under the contract the city signed with the state means that cost is on the city, and that means that the cost is on the taxpayers. So I sort of need some guidance before I go into this meeting with GDOT. We can stand tall and say, nope, we're not throwing any more money. Don't care if the numbers don't justify. That's what the council wants. And then we can see what GDOT's going to do. Or we can keep the project moving and say, we'll go with the state on this one and the state engineers that, they know best. They know traffic and engineering. Let's move with those roundabouts. And then we'll need to budget in 2017 for another $100,000 of engineering.
Either way, we have to pay for the engineering, right?
Well, you've already done the engineering. They've always already done it for traffic lights.
I see. Okay.
So this would be, so all I can say is Merry Christmas with a ribbon. What would you like to do?
What is the difference between the cost of actually putting in a roundabout versus the red lights?
The actual construction cost is on the state, not us. The engineering's on us.
Just construction and include purchase of land?
GDOT has looked at it, and it doesn't matter which intersection. They have already done apparently some in-house models that apparently they're going to bring to this meeting and show us. So they're a lot further on with their modeling than they've alluded. And they, if they're going to do right-of-way acquisition, again, that's on GDOT. It's not on us. So that's a good question. I know
Is that in writing? Do we have that?
Which part?
That's on them, land purchase, because I'm not sure the one on 61 at Punkintown Road, there's enough right of way there to build unless it's a very, very small roundabout.
Yeah, there's no on the, that's a separate project, but
Yeah, that's
there's
not-
zero right-of-way acquisition on that intersection. Zero.
But that is the North Loop.
No, that's a
No,
mini.
It's further up.
The Punkintown,
I mean, not Punkintown,
Dallas.
but that terminus of the bypass is at 61.
yes, and
So-
they already have enough right-of-way for that they've indicated.
Okay.
In fact, it was interesting because I had to pull out the maps recently because I'm dealing with all of these appraisers and they were talking to me about something and I put them on hold because I was scratching my head and I went back to the things that, oh, that's right. They actually are buying all that land up there on that other side. As you get up to they have right-of-way acquisition all the way up, like, to Stockmar. Yeah, so they actually have a lot more in that swath. And for some reason in my head, I didn't recall all of that up by Stockmar. I'm like, no, you're way too far. And then so I put them on hold and I pulled the map and say, oh, no, never mind, that's right. You're correct. Let's continue our conversation.
So what kind of roundabout would they put in for the North Loop, which is followed by the mini roundabout?
The mini roundabout is much different. The larger one is actually scaled for trucks. They're prepared to come to the meeting with all their numbers, their traffic studies. They've done their traffic counts. They just haven't done any of the
Two
engineering.
roundabouts aren't very far apart.
Well, they're what, a mile just apart? Oh, you mean the two? Yeah, they've already modeled that.
Down road, mini roundabout.
Close.
Yeah, they,
Just to the right, north of that is.
yeah, supposedly they've already modeled it, because you go from Punkintown right up to this one coming out, where that sign is, on by Ashbrook, on the left side. And you can see it because it's already marked. Go by there and the stakes are already there, folks. If you actually want to walk the path, they're there. Just don't walk too far, it's not our property.
Are they
But the
modeling,
stakes are out there.
are they modeling a three-way roundabout or a four-way roundabout?
Oh, where at?
The new one that would end at the north bypass on Highway 61.
I'm only aware of a north, south, and west. It's only
Well,
three.
no, there was another section of bypass. That we're not-
There's no east loop
No.
on this one.
Okay.
No,
No,
it's
zero.
zero.
None.
There's none. I'm looking at you trying to figure out when you're asking. It's like, and I'm counting 1, 2, and then 3. 'Cause
Yeah, but
that's
the
all they
maps
show.
still show another section.
That's all ancient history. And so that I'm very, very clear, that road, Punkintown, is under local control of this council.
Amen.
Until this council changes local control, the state cannot make it an east loop.
Okay.
We had those put in the federal documents. The council gave me very clear direction. That is what's in the federal documents right now.
Thank you.
Okay, so you want feedback on the traffic light, okay.
Yeah.
I'm not a traffic engineer, I want whatever moves traffic, so I'm not gonna pretend that I know more than a traffic engineer. So, I don't have a professional opinion because I don't have the skill level to decide what moves traffic best there. So I'd have to defer to the engineers. They just keep costing us money.
I know, but in my opinion, if we don't go with what they want to put in, it's going to probably drag it out a lot longer.
Another
And let me say this,
If
with-
we dig in our heels and say we want it the way it's designed, I think it's going to delay it. So we probably have to go with what they suggest.
and I agree with Councilman McPherson. I'm not a traffic engineer either, but what I would like to see is if, when DOT does their thing, are they gonna is this gonna be a public meeting where the public will come and know what's going on?
No, we'll have to educate the public on what's going on.
Well, we will do that.
Yeah, because it's not any additional right-of-way acquisition that they've indicated to me. Again, if anything changes, I'd let you know. But as of right now, there's no additional, and apparently for some time, because again, I came to the city, May of 2015. 2 weeks later, I'd met up at the state. Early on, all I ever heard from them was roundabout. In fact, some of my subsequent meetings got very heated because the engineers are like, tried everything they could justify, and they did. Keckenwood did everything they could to justify the traffic counts. But the state said those counts don't meet mustard. They meet no thresholds. So the state has pushed back. So now it's gone all the way up to the project manager, which we're now on our third project manager since I've been with the city, with GDOT. And they have called the meeting. They're bringing in everybody from Cartersville and Atlanta, and they want to know. So I had a call just before I came in from Keckenwood saying, this is going to cost the city $100,000, and we don't want to cost the city anymore, what you thinking? I said, well, I'll let you know what I'm thinking after I talk to the council. Because that's the reality is someone's got to pay for it, and your contract says the city pays for engineering.
Two things. Number one, I think public awareness of what we're talking about is the most important thing we can say. because when you start talking about a roundabout, most people are going to say the roundabout at Punkintown and 61.
Yep, you're right.
That's the first thing going to come to mind. And that's totally incorrect. The roundabout we're talking about is roughly 100 yards north of the intersection of Punkintown and 61.
Exactly, and we're going to ask Ken Denny to update the graphic he created and now add another roundabout, which is a mini roundabout, because he's the only one that's created a graphic so far that's ever shown up that is easy to understand. So Ken,
Thank
you know,
you,
do us a favor and go in that program you used and add another mini roundabout if you would.
Now, the other thing
And that's not a paid advertisement, by the way.
is
So,
the fact that on one end, on 61, you have the roundabout on the, and it's three ways, north, south, and to the west. But at the other end of it, where it goes into 101, it will be a four-way roundabout. And if you use a traffic light or traffic signal there, that may be something that these guys would entertain, simply because of the ability for the big trucks to make a straight line from 61 to actually I-20, and not really have to do a whole lot of slowing down or whatever. So, you know, I think the roundabouts would be great and wonderful if we could get one on one end and the light on the other end. There are 18 subdivisions up 101 that's come into Villa Rica every day going to I-20 to go to work. Those folks are, as you can tell every day on the news, that I-20 and around the Atlanta area, tractor trailers and cars don't mix real well. You know, we had a person here in Villa Rica that almost lost his life with one a couple of nights ago. But the idea would be to move the traffic as best possible, and I agree with you two. I'm no engineer. I'm just no fat football coach. But the idea is to get those folks from one place to another as quick as possible, and whatever they deem necessary, I think that's what we need to do. But I also just want to make sure Mr. Denny understands that the people that's out there that don't have that idea about where this is going to be, we don't need 500 people here yelling and screaming Tuesday night saying, you're the one that said there wasn't going to be no east bypass. That's probably true, but it's not true in this issue. We ain't talking about a bypass. We're talking about a roundabout that's on 61 north of Punkintown, about 100 yards. Actually, it's where the wooded area comes in. People can't see the stakes.
Since we're talking about roundabouts, when are they gonna put in that mini roundabout on Punkintown?
well, funny you should bring that up, since it's so close to the North Loop. So Mr. City Attorney worked with me diligently to create some construction easements. And we sent them up to GDOT and said, would you please review these to make sure that they meet your needs so that we can move forward. And that's when GDOT said, well, maybe we're just not doing this exactly the way that, you know, we think we should be doing. And so I just keep, you know, knocking on the door on a regular basis saying, where are we? Where are we? Where are we? And so I don't know. As soon as we can get those approved construction easement documents back, I can go to the property owners and ask them, you know, to entertain to sign them, and then we can go.
But that's not tied to what we're talking about right here.
No. But by the way, when they're here, guess what I'm asking about again?
Understood, but I don't want that, you know, we're talking about, and I thank you, fat football coach, for bringing that up. But I like that, actually. That could grow on a person. Ex-fat football coach or ex? I like the idea. I think the public always needs to be involved and know what's going on. And, you know, this is another one of those unfunded state mandates or federal mandates where, you know, now they've changed their mind. You know, it was a red light, now it's a roundabout. No, by the way, we want y'all to pay for the engineering, although we've already staked it. I think that's kind of funny, but in a way, not really.
But at least we ain't looking for Indiana bats or South
Well,
Carolina.
I was hoping you wouldn't bring that up. We don't think there are any endangered species in the roadway there, although some motorists are endangered species. And, you know, the funny thing about roundabouts, I don't think any of us know how to really use them. I just enter them and kind of hold my breath until I get to the other side. But they do work. And I asked a friend of mine who works for Douglas County DOT, I said, you know, tell me about roundabouts. And, you know, they've built a couple. And he said, well, you know, the funny thing is, in all my years, and he worked for many years for Cobb County DOT, he said, I've never taken one out. He said, I've built a lot of them, designed a lot of them, but I've never taken one out. And I thought about that, and I thought, well, now that kind of speaks for itself. You know, if you put them in, if it doesn't work, you would think that somebody would end up taking them back out and putting red lights up. So what I hear the council saying is that we move forward and have this on the agenda for Tuesday night. Okay.
I don't think that there will be a vote, Mr. Mayor, on Tuesday. I needed guidance so that when I'm in the meeting,
Being talked to
if ultimately GDOT says you got to go roundabout, I need to be able to say, okay, the council will pay for the 100,000. Let's go ahead and have the amendment done, because you financially will be put on the hook at some point for the engineering. So you're not committing yourself at this point. I just need to know what the will of the council needs the minutes to reflect. It's not a voting, but I didn't want to misrepresent your will when I'm sitting down with them.
I think we're obliged to do what they tell us to do, so.
Since 1965, we put about 900,000 in it, so what's another 100,000?
$1 million.
Yeah.
I'd like to recognize my beautiful wife who came in a little bit late back in the back. She's going to kill me for this when she gets home. And thank you for coming. She came straight from school, so I appreciate that.
First lady.
We have chocolate up here.
Yeah, we have candy. David's bribing us with candy. So, okay, moving on to C1 nugget drop. Ms. Vicky?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. As you know,
Afternoon.
as you know, a couple of weeks ago, the governor announced a ban on the sale and use of consumer fireworks, and this was largely related to the drought. So it was just important for us to come and bring this item before you in October. We went ahead and secured the contractor who was going to be discharging the fireworks at the Nugget Drop. Just in light of the drought situation, wanted to see what the feeling of the council was. Again, we've more or less moved forward. We know it's related to solely consumer, the sale and use of consumer fireworks. Yes, there has been some change with the weather here recently, but we wanted to make sure that you were good with the direction with the staff continuing to move forward and plan for the Nugget Drop and the fireworks.
It says here they've gone ahead and are doing tree lighting shows at Atlantic Station, Lenox, Avalon this past week. So they're not so concerned that they can't have theirs. I'm sure they're like us where there's a lot of concrete or asphalt around it too.
Sure.
We're not out in the woods doing fireworks, but I'm for moving ahead.
And Vicki, just so the public knows, we also have a fire truck on site, so that if
Yeah,
something
that's
were to
a good
happen,
thing.
so that's
Absolutely.
different than shooting fireworks in your backyard.
Yes.
Yeah,
that is
that's a good
correct.
thing, yeah.
Any questions?
Yeah, a lot.
Please speak, sir.
Nugget Drop. In the wake of the drought in Georgia, Governor Deal stepped in and issued an executive order November 16th banning the sale and use of fireworks in 100 counties, including Douglas and Carroll. This means unless the drought ends prior to the New Year's Eve, there will be no fireworks at the annual Nugget Drop at the Mill in historic downtown Villa Rica.
What are you reading?
That's the,
Page right here.
It's lacking the consumer, the underlying
No,
consumer
I don't have
fireworks?
that. I'm talking about in our,
That was a new addition, Bob.
Oh.
sorry,
The former agenda, or is that what you're reading?
I'm
The
reading this. Is there an addition to that?
It's your new agenda I gave you.
That is.
No, it's that one page, it's on front and back. Didn't have both attached in it, that's one you need to use.
Yeah, but
Oh,
even
okay.
the one I already had says consumer fireworks. Even it says consumer.
Says we'll have low-level fireworks.
That's fine.
Yeah, so the general public isn't, because I'm telling you, around my house, it would be totally unsafe. There are so many leaves all over the place, it wouldn't be safe to do anything that involves a flame.
Okay, I'm reading the old agenda which says there will be no fireworks. Excuse me. What's the name of that team?
Thank you, Vicki. Item D, D1 ordinance. Mr. Miller.
Yes, this is a proposed ordinance. This is coming from the state. There's been some changes to the soil and erosion sedimentation pollution control ordinance. So the city attorney has reviewed the ordinance and sent this over, saying that we need to incorporate it into our Unified Development Code, which would replace the current soil erosion sedimentation pollution control ordinance in its entirety.
Yeah, I did take a look at it, trying to compare the new ordinance to the old one, and the only difference I have found so far is that there was a definition added in for coastal marshlands. There's bound to be more than that, but so far that's the only difference I've seen. And this is a state mandated ordinance, so we don't really have a whole lot of choice.
Yeah, I mean, what debate is there? We have to do it.
Yeah,
There's not, I mean, which,
we could argue about it all day long.
Next.
Item 2.
item 2, no, I don't think that, I think it's wee, or something like that. All right, so we had a businessman approach the city, and he wanted to do horse-drawn carriages for hire during the holidays. Specifically mentioned was during the Christmas to New Year's holiday. Under our current ordinances, unless the city manager has found something differently, under our permitting process, I'm currently authorized to issue special event and temporary permits. So there's nothing that would restrict this entity under that permitting process to operate. However, in reviewing the code, if we're going to have horse-drawn carriages and horses in our city operating for hire, whether it's during the holidays or otherwise, staff felt that it warranted some enforcement guidelines and rules and regulations that they would have to abide by. We took this to the Planning and Zoning Commission. There was one member absent, so there was 4 members present. They voted 3-1 to not recommend moving forward with the ordinance as written. The city attorney has reviewed this ordinance, and if he's got anything else to add, by all means, that's the staff side.
No, and we're not going back to square one on this. This is an ordinance that's been in place in another similarly sized city. Seemed to be reasonable for the needs that we might have. But I have no feeling one way or the other whether you adopt it.
I quickly scanned through it looking for the sanitation part, and I found it to clean up, so I was happy with it. I think it's a good deal. Actually, it gives us a little flavor to the city.
So you were looking for the scoop on the poop?
Yep, that was what I was looking. I found it on number 19 here.
Where are they gonna cross the railroad track?
Well, that was my probably only concern is safety.
Yeah, under this, actually, if it gives the city manager or my designee the administrative authority to approve any routes of where they're going to operate. And obviously, I would not allow a horse-drawn buggy to cross a railroad, especially at Chief Street.
Thank you.
I read all of it for fun. I've seen these operate in St. Augustine, Charleston, Savannah, Dahlonega.
Gosh, you move around a lot.
She
I used to live in Florida.
does her
It's easy to
travels.
see the
She's
St.
a
Augustine
well-traveled
one.
woman.
Yeah,
But, and Dahlonegah's probably, the smaller area. My concern, biggest concern, was safety. And I was pleased to see that it was special events, because personally, I can't see anybody making enough money that many people want to take carriage rides in Villa Rica on a regular basis.
Most people drive their own horse up here.
Yeah, there you go.
Which is
That'd be
legal.
interesting.
Some do.
But with the way the trucks come, I mean, I don't know if they just want to see this parking lot in the back street. Well, and maybe like in front of Uncorked, it seems to me we're real limited as to safe area in the downtown, that you're not challenging semis. So that was a big concern for me. And is the reason you deal with all the code enforcement rather than code enforcement? I noticed that it left a lot of that authority to you, David. Is that because they'd be operating most of the time when code enforcement was off duty, or what?
All of this is the city manager, their designee. So if you think I'm going to go out and inspect the carriages to make sure that they have turn signals and lights and all that, or to find out, no. The reason is that the authority of the staff always, the administrative authority of the staff goes through one of two things, either charter or code, and so all enforcement authority starts with the city manager, and then is delegated authority. So in this case, we rotate our folks. As far as the safety,
It wouldn't just be you.
It's not
It
just
mi-
me,
Might
no.
be, it might be Vicky with Recreation, or Chris. Chris wants to do this job. Because there are some important things in there, such as humane treatment of the animals, or certain, so we do want to make sure that it's
without
done.
without question. Yeah, so I will undercover, because I'm very stealth at that. We'll ride this sometimes and just check it out.
You're gonna go stealthy.
Because I'm very stealthy. But no, I guess I've only done a carriage maybe once or twice. I did one in New York, and maybe that's the only time I've done that. It was New York.
I guess
That's
it's
scary
worked out
enough. That's scary enough.
Well, let me say this too. I think it's very important that we always listen to our boards that we have out there working for us. And the Planning and Zoning Board voted 3-1 to deny this. I don't know if this is even appropriate or not, David Mecklin. But, we have at least one Planning and Zoning person here in the audience. Is it appropriate to hear from them at this point, or?
You certainly have the right to ask anybody to give an opinion that you choose to.
you're getting 1 out of 4 opinions, though.
But I did get some email, I did get some feedback. I always like to hear from them, because I want to hear their reasoning behind it. But so far, I've gotten more details from one person and some details from another, so I'm still missing the other opinions.
Is that one person in the audience?
Who's out here? Is John out there? Got a little bit from John, and other John Mount sent me some details. I'd be happy to hear what John has to say. And we can contact the others, Isaac. I have everybody's phone number. I can get more feedback. I want to look at the ordinance some more. That's my thing. I read it all, but I really need to spend a little bit more time on it.
Mr. Hanneback, would you come forward, please?
We certainly reviewed the ordinance in some detail, and it is a very detailed ordinance as written. There were questions about things that needed more specificity. There were some things like stabling. Are you going to allow stabling of these horses in town? But the biggest concern that I had, and that we ultimately voted on, was safety and traffic. Can you imagine a horse-drawn carriage coming down 78? 78 is bad enough to drive down now with the angled parking and the narrow streets. Now you get behind a horse-drawn carriage, that's a real safety issue. You certainly aren't going to pass it. And as was mentioned, where do you go in Villa Rica in a horse-drawn carriage because you're just fascinated by the view? One of those streets is going to be the Route 78. That's where the businesses are. And then to get to Main Street, you gotta cross the railroad tracks. So it's a very detailed ordinance, but I don't think it's great for Atlanta. Atlanta draws them and they do well. But we're not Atlanta. This is Villa Rica. And I don't see a place here. We can deny anybody that wants to draw this. It's dangerous. So we discussed, there was a motion to deny it. There was an amendment to the motion to ask for more specificity and detail. And we decided not to go with the specificity, and it was voted 3-1 to deny the use of horse-drawn carriages in Villa Rica, deny this ordinance.
So
Thank you, John.
safety was the number one issue, and what did you say was the other one?
Well, the traffic problem being safety.
So still safety?
Right.
Okay, so we need to find, if this could even operate here, you would need that concern alleviated.
Oh, man, yes.
Yeah, well, I mean,
You would have to limit
I
where
was
they
thinking
could
they might want
operate.
to go in the olive tree and back down the street over there. I mean,
Right.
it's limited, so it's not exactly lovely down the back road here. I'm curious as to safety of operation. That's probably my biggest concern.
Anybody else have any questions of John? Thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
Okay, so I hear safety. Do we actually have an applicant that will be here if we put this on the agenda for Tuesday night, correct? Someone has, obviously.
The applicant's only going to move forward if we approve it. The applicant wasn't given, the applicant wasn't told that the city manager already has the authority to approve them operating here.
And I heard you say you would specify the routes allowed.
Well, I have to approve routes. Certainly, if someone comes in that wants to operate, I'm going to ask them to propose a route. It's the same thing with, Main Street, propose a race route, and then we'll approve it. I'm not going to go in and say, let me draw your route. I'm not going to do your business plan for you. They've got to bring me a proposed route. And then usually what I do is on things like that, I go over to the police chief and say, does this smell like poop, or do you want to pass it?
Oh, and John, that's the other thing you mentioned, stabling, but I was assuming, especially when I read special events, that they're probably bringing them in a trailer and then they go home where they live
Yeah,
in the
there's
rural
no,
area. or
there's no
whatever.
stables unless one of you all have one that I don't know about.
I
But
think that's probably occurring
Yeah.
in the cities where they do this all the time.
I'm
like
sure there's lots of
Savannah,
stables
Charleston.
outside. I mean, I see, out in Villa Rica, there's a lot of rural area out there, but there's no stabling, in the downtown or local
Just
area.
stable out there on Edge Road.
Yeah.
I think-
I'm always surprised, you always see the horses show up in the parade that we have. It's perfectly legal. Under current Georgia law, you can ride a horse down the interstate and they'll stop the interstate for you.
I think everybody agrees that safety is the concern. And we have a person that's charged with that responsibility, primarily Chief Mansour. Have you had a chance, Chief, what's your opinion? I would be interested to hear that.
And if you'd like to read all 9 pages, I'll provide them for you.
I have not read the whole ordinance. Obviously, I agree with them in the traffic part of it. I would love to make sure that we have it in designated areas where they only ride certain areas. They don't get on the main roads, like 78, 61, places like that. The other concern I have, and it may be in there, I hadn't talked to David about it, but it may be in there, is the background check on the applicant to make sure that.
I think I saw that in there.
Okay, to make sure that, they're not an offender of any kind, and it's just like any other business that we have, like a taxi or something, that, sex offender or something like that, the worst thing we can do is put somebody like that in position. So those are my concerns, but yeah, I'm not for it or against it. It's either way, whatever y'all decide, we'll work through it.
Thank you, sir. Would it be reasonable then, council, to direct staff to get with the applicant and to try to figure out what the route's going to be and put it on the agenda for Tuesday night? Is that something, David, that you think you could do? Oh, I don't like that. Maybe not.
Well, I'm looking at the city attorney because of a legal potentially, and I think he's good at sometimes reading my forehead. But let's find out.
Well, my observation is that we're spending a lot of time on something that's going to be a very minuscule, minor issue here in the city, that this person that wants to do it probably wants to try it a time and see if it's going to work. I too have my doubts that it will be economically viable here, so that this may not be a problem that we have to worry about more than one time. If it is successful for them, then maybe you do need to worry about an ordinance. But it's not illegal to be driving a horse-drawn carriage down the center of the city right now.
So he could actually do it with,
Yeah, what we're really regulating is the commercial aspects of it. I mean, a private individual can get their wagon and drive it up and down the streets all day long, and back and forth across the tracks, and
Turn the tape off. We don't,
there's nothing to keep them from doing that right now. It's the commercial aspects we're trying to regulate here, and until we know for sure that there really will be a commercial aspect to it, I wouldn't spend a whole lot more time on it.
could this, just a question, you say it's legal now, could this guy actually come in and do it now at Christmas time?
Yeah, I think so.
Would he have to get a permit?
He could charge
I would think that there's nothing to keep him from charging it. We don't regulate it. I mean, we're not regulating it at all. He'd have
So
to
he could just show up and do it?
He'd have to get an occupation tax certificate
Okay.
from us, because he would be conducting business here.
Business license,
And
okay.
he would be subject, if one of his workhorses happens to litter the street, then he could get a citation for littering.
So we really don't need the ordinance right now.
I think that you can get by this first time to see how it works without having the ordinance. If it looks like it's going to be a repeat thing that we will suddenly become like
so we're going to
Savannah
delegate
or
that authority.
Charleston, then we need to consider adopting it.
So we're basically going to delegate that authority to the city manager, and he'll make sure all the safety aspects have been, and you've heard that's, and I know you share the same thing, so.
Yeah, I mean, as I said at the plan and zoning, I mean, I already have the authority to authorize this, and I don't, I made it clear that they could already operate. It's whether or not this governing body wants to regulate them, or moving forward, have the checks and balances in place. But yeah, if they show up and operate, I can't shut them down.
Oh, that's a great idea. Let's have less government. My feeling now is, why pass the ordinance if it's not a problem? If they come down and only operate one time and say, I'm not making any money in Villa Rica, I don't want to do this anymore, we have an ordinance we don't even need.
Okay, then my question
If it
then
becomes
is,
a problem,
if they show up and operate and don't clean up their mess,
Chief Mansour's going to get them for littering.
Or clean it up.
Right.
Right.
But I do understand how the ordinance protects us in a way, because it allows us to make, whether it's humane treatment of animal, the licensing, and I did notice it looks like it adds up to about $200 of different fees, and there's about 3 different ways they get charged. Their horse, we have to have a picture of the horse too. And, they have to be on a little thing, and all these little signs, did you read all that? All the little signs that have to go like billboards on the carriage.
background check on a horse, that's gonna be a tough one.
Yeah.
We're spending a lot of time on something really, it should be cut and dry.
Thank you.
But, with all this being said, I think you well-traveled people, think about where it took place in some of these other cities that had probably 2-lane highways, 4-lane highways, 2 on one side, 2 on the other, that people could get by the carriage being drawn by a horse or an oxen or whatever. Makes it a little bit harder when you have a 2-lane road downtown. I agree with you. Let's let it happen, and if it creates a problem, then we put some stipulations with it, and if not, we don't worry about it and go on.
We'll keep it in our hip pocket until something happens.
Exactly. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
We
I
would
think we
encourage
killed that
them
one.
not to
Elmo,
cross the
Elmo.
tracks.
Item 3.
Item 3 is on the consent agenda. So on an annual basis, staff goes through and does the process of sending out and then receiving the renewals of the alcohol licenses. All of these are current existing. There are no one on this list that is new because they wouldn't be eligible for such. So this is requested for the consent agenda of everyone that met the appropriate deadlines and all the rules and regulations in order to move forward on the consent agenda to have their 2017 alcohol license renewed.
I only have one quick question. I noticed that a few of them, and it could be a typographical thing when you're lining them up. There's several businesses at the top of the first page that are duplicated on the second page, and it appears to be the same license, malt, beverage, and wine. Does that mean anything other than they're repeated twice for some reason?
I don't actually have an answer to that. Staff puts together the list, and
Like
so
the first
I have no firsthand knowledge beyond that.
Well, it could have been when you're copying it, it just grabs the first ones, I don't know.
Looked like
You know,
the
when you're
first
doing
4 got duplicated.
Yeah, when you're doing something on the computer, but it
Oh,
probably
yeah.
means nothing. That was the only thing I was asking. Otherwise, let's have it done.
Further discussion? Item 4.
Ah, yes, Mobility. This is a request from a company, Mobility LLC, that would like to put a 75-foot tall utility pole in the city for the purpose of data communications. We currently don't have any franchise ordinance or regulation in place for them at this time. And I'm going to immediately turn, let's see, the Planning and Zoning Commission rejected this, I believe 4-0 with one member absent. It was 4-0, correct? John, is he still here? John? Okay, I seem to recall it was 4-0 to deny, based on a recommendation for the council to deny, and I'll hand it over to the city attorney at this time.
Yeah, and what I'm going to do is I'd like to request that on the agenda for Tuesday that we add an item to allow me to make some type of presentation about what our regulations are in our right-of-ways at the current time, and have a brief discussion about that before we act on this particular application.
Was this over next to the schoolhouse?
It's on Rocky Branch Road. I don't know exactly where.
My GPS put it over there close to the stadium, the football field.
Well, the address at school is 600 Rocky Branch Road.
So anyway,
The answer is yes, sir.
Yeah, I think I'd like to just outline for the council what type of regulation we have within our right-of-way, and that ought to be a separate item to be on the agenda prior to this.
3A.
Yeah, maybe 3A.
And I'll list that as right-of-way regulations, and I'll just leave it at that, sir.
I think that's fine.
I have a question. It's not like those cell towers. But it's data. What's the difference?
It is not a cell tower. You're absolutely correct. It's a data communications tower. They actually allow companies such as Sprint, AT&T, T-Mobile, et cetera, to subscribe and utilize their infrastructure for data communications, data transmissions, Wi-Fi, things of that nature.
It's the legal equivalent of a telephone pole or a electric utility pole.
Okay.
That's the legal equivalency of it.
Yes, with no wires attached.
Well, say for instance there were people out there that was going to supply them additional Wi-Fi service or something like that. I didn't quite understand how this played in. I don't want those people not to get it, but I did have the Ward 3 planning and zoning person email me with some concerns about how close it was to the road. I haven't been out there. I was trying to look at the pictures. I don't know if it takes 32 pages to request this, but we have 32 pages from them on this. And I was trying to look at the probably engineered type drawings. It's like a whole tree just for this one request.
If I could interrupt you, I know you may have a question, but many of these issues is what I'd like to bring up in our
Great.
presentation on
Great.
Tuesday.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the audience?
The candy man. Okay, thank you, David, for that clarification. Moving on to item 5, street name resolutions.
Let's see, this is a item we're bringing back before the governing body. The city attorney has put it into the proper form. We've spoken to the affected property owners. This request originally originated from Councilwoman Marchman to have this little spur of North Avenue renamed to J. Crowder Drive.
I'd like to make a comment on that, and you know, I sat out in the audience and listened to Councilman McPherson, and your point was well taken. I think as a general rule, we don't need to name streets after people while they're still alive, and that sounds kind of morbid, but lots of things can happen while you're still alive, and you may not want a street named after someone. But let me say this, you know, being in the recreation field for most of my life, Jay Crowder, if you don't know, Jay Crowder is I don't think he's an all-star, but he is a star for the Boston Celtics. Graduated from Villa High School, but if you know a little bit about his past, he was I don't want to say he was an obese young man, but he was certainly overweight, and he worked very hard with different trainers and folks, and made it to the NBA. And I think that speaks a lot about his character as a person. But more importantly, I think the location of that street, being adjacent to Tanner Medical Center, I think we need to look at that, and I think that Tanner would probably be receptive to being a part of some type of incentive to get our young people out of in front of Xboxes and maybe train a little bit better and be a little bit more athletic, and you know, that's going to help the whole community. And them, of course, as well. So, you know, I just want to remind y'all that we need to consider that this young man does have a past, and you know, he was he's a winner, and he's a winner because he tried very hard. So, that's just my statement.
I'd just like to add to that too, even though I did make the statement about sometimes I think it's better to do it for people who have passed on. He's not only a good athlete, he's actually given back to the community, and I think we have to appreciate that. I don't know how many years he's done it. I know of at least several where he's come back and with whatever foundation or charity they have supplied tons of school supplies to children in the community. So, you know, it's one thing if you're just a star athlete, but when you come back and do good things for your community, I think that says something for them.
Pretty smart too when you graduate from Marquette.
Yes, you are.
And the teams he plays for, primarily the ones responsible for a major portion of what is given away. But I know at least 2 years that he has sent the athletic director from the recreation department to Walmart to buy more items to give away out of his own pocket. So, you know, you're really talking about somebody that you would want. Let me see how to say this. If you had a daughter, he would be the kind of guy you would want your daughter to marry. Best way I can put it.
Councilman Carter, any input on that?
No, I've got no problem with it.
Okay. And I'll just, you know, make a comment. As we're talking to Tanner, and I'll certainly be a member, a person, participant at that meeting, but let's promote that with Tanner. And I know you have done that, and so let's continue to try to push that forward. Okay.
The next one on here, which is 2 pages in, there's a paperclip on it. So I realize when I do like A, B, C or whatever, I guess we don't have the small letters in the tabs. So I got to remember that. I gotta remember that. So the next one, we have spoken about, when the council spoke about Loft Lane up here between Temple Street and Church Street. Basically, the city attorney, conveyed that, for all intents and purposes, it already is a public street. So he wanted to then go ahead and draft this properly into the resolution and have it put forth before you. So this is the document that was previously discussed, the road previously discussed by council, and the document now brought forth to affect what was the will of the council.
I got no problem with this one, because this one's already in place and people are using it that way.
Good.
All right, the third one doesn't have paperclip. This is a request that has come forth to the city. Let me get there. Actually, it does have paperclip, my fault. This comes from Mr. Larry Boggs. There's an unnamed road that he requests be renamed. This is there's some history behind this area where he had, as I understand, gave up a corner of his property to help facilitate what is now known as the flyover. In exchange for that, he had a road built in the midst of his property. Mr. Boggs is now talking to the city about a development on that property that we're just keeping close to our vest at this point, because it's none of our business until he files paperwork with us. But he has requested that road be named Boggs Road.
No problem for me.
Is that the road where,
It's off of Highway 78 to the east of the flyover.
I understand that, but I'm talking about, is it right there in front of, Leather's truck stop that turns right?
This one is no, sir. This is actually, if you go up 78, the flyover will be on your right, and you keep going just a little further and you go right. And then if you keep going a little further and were to take the next road, you'd actually go into Southwire. And then at the very, very back, the last page, sir, of the application is a overview map, and then shows the road, sir.
It has a gate on it at this point.
Yes, okay, I was gonna say, is that the one with the gate on it? Yeah, all right.
That's where the stables are. I don't know what's back there. It's all gated. I fly my drone over it.
That's nothing.
He built his own road.
And he is still living, by the way.
Oh, yeah,
Just for the record.
but he does have,
It is his road.
at this point,
He also owns the property almost.
Yeah, but for naming purposes, just saying.
He's a good guy, though, isn't he?
Oh yeah, I've met him multiple times. We're working on a couple things together.
Tab E.
All right, tab.
Tab E, item 1. Christopher Pike, what PowerPoint presentation do you have for us?
none.
Actually,
I do have a quick one.
let me get a piece of chocolate. Anybody else need a piece of chocolate?
Turn this off.
Anyone else? Anyone else?
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Council. We're doing well.
You another one?
Both Davids told me I need to hurry up, so.
I think I said
3
4
minutes?
minutes. Oh, 3. I gave him 4.
Oh, okay, three and a
Man,
half.
all right, do I hear 2?
You got 3:25 now.
Well, I'm waiting on Lisa now. That's my fault.
It's
Why?
They're all standard
Oh,
thumb
put
drive.
it in the right.
Not fair
Right.
to take you
What's that?
time.
all right, now you're
Can you
down
not
to
hear me?
2 minutes.
Got it?
Oh, me. Here we go. You know what that means?
Elmo.
Yeah, what does it mean? Enough, let's move on.
All right, that'll work. As soon as I see that, that'd be my
Yeah, okay.
occasion to sit down.
Hit that flag.
Golly,
Thank you.
at least it didn't kill no trees.
They'd probably like to wave that sign for us sometime.
I didn't say it. There you go, I got it. All right, real quickly, we're gonna talk a little bit about the hotel, motel tax.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Hey, all right, he's cutting time off.
Yeah. This is just an excerpt. As you all are aware at this point, Carrollton just passed a. That took 30 seconds. The city to the south of it, Carrollton passed a resolution sent to the General Assembly increasing their hotel motel tax to 8%. I will say David and I talked about this about 4 or 5 months ago, and we decided that we would bring it up at the appropriate time, and so now this is the time. Just real quick, this talks about tourism promotion. I think sometimes we get a little confused about what we can and can't do with hotel motel tax. The reality is a significant portion of that is dedicated to advertising for tourism for the city of Villa Rica, and I think sometimes we kind of try to get loose with what we can and can't do with it. So this is a great example. This comes from DCA. This is not me, but sometimes we say, hey, can we buy fireworks with hotel motel tax? And the answer to that is not advertising or marketing. So the answer to that is no. But I'll give you some specifics where you could. So to really to think about it, if it's not advertising, informing, or promoting, then it doesn't necessarily qualify for the promotional part of the hotel motel tax. You all have a contract with a service provider. That service provider is the Villa Rica Convention and Visitors Bureau through the DDA. They are the ones that provide the Destination Marketing Organization, or the DMO. Just so we know for the moving forward, TPD is Tourism Product Development, and that's actually a physical asset. That's the construction of a facility, a park, or the renovation of a facility, such as a park, or anything that would drive tourism to the city of Villa Rica. So real quickly, there's 3 mechanisms that the state allows a city to collect hotel motel tax. The first one is the basic 3%. That's basically the city can levy a 3% tax and use that money in the general fund. There's a second level is the 5%, which we currently have here in Villa Rica. But when you collect the 5% tax, there are restrictions that are placed on that, and we'll talk a little bit about those later. And then the third one, this is one that we're discussing more detail today, is the one that we currently don't do, and that's anything that we collect above 6% to 8%, which is the maximum the state will allow. All right, so the 3%, basically, as I said, there's no restrictions on it. In year 1, you put it in general fund and buy police cars for Chief Mansour and anything else you want to do with it. But the caveat to that is if you spend any of that money on tourism, that becomes a new threshold by law. So if you collect $100 and you spend $50 of it on tourism, every other year after that, you have to allocate $50 out of that 3% for tourism. And whichever is the highest number, that's the level for the following year. So if the following year you spend $75, then you are required to spend $75 of that 100 in subsequent years. So that's the only restriction on the 3%. So that's basically what this is saying is generally you can use that 3% on anything. An exception is when you restrict it by an advertisement with that 3%. This little trigger thing is like, goodness. 5%, which is what we do now, is what we commonly know as a 60-40 split. So we collect 5% sales tax, and by law we have to allocate at least 40% of that to the DMO, or for promotion and marketing, advertising of Villa Rica. So 3 pennies go to the city, 2 pennies go to the CVB in this scenario that we currently have. Anything above that, there is a breakdown in what we do. So once we get to, something must be wrong with Lisa's computer. Once we get to the third section where we're talking about the 6, 7, and 8%, that's when you have specific breakdowns in the rule changes as far as what we can do at hotel motel tax. And David Mecklin, as an attorney, can tell you that must means that's things that you have to do. So it's not optional stuff. So in this, we can use 100% for marketing and advertising. And if you decide not to do that, you're required by law to at least spend 50% of the 6, 7, and 8 penny on marketing and advertising. And then the other 50% must go to a TPD project. So 50% goes to your DMO, and the other 50% stays with the city for TPD projects. That's anything that's that penny, that's a 6 penny, 7 penny, and 8 penny. We have to specify what those projects are. If you saw the ordinance that came from the other city, I think it's in your packet, you'll see that they specified a renovation for the Cultural Arts Center there. So you do have to, and I've confirmed this with the Department of Community Affairs. So you do have to spell out what you plan to do with that. Again, there's a physical construction projects and the tax revenue, the other 50% to the DMO. This is just a list of things that you can do that qualify as a TPD project. It's pretty wide ranging, things that you can do, and something that we think will be very important for us moving forward when we're looking at some of the projects that we want to do, especially looking at the master plan for downtown. And speaking of that, I'm not going to go into the master plan, but I did want to say that this helps us complete a lot of those projects without having to use property tax monies to do them. So I'm going to talk about the budget and the numbers and how that alleviates a lot of the stress on the city budget. We accommodate these projects, but we're not using property tax and other general funds money to do it. So right now we're collecting about $128,000 in hotel motel tax at 5%. 3% of that goes to the city, which is about $78,000, and 51% goes to the DMO or the CVB. If we do the 8% collection, based on the breakdown that's required by law, the 3% would still go to the general fund. Promote tourism would be the 3.5%, and then tourism development would be 1.5%, which would be $38,625. And we projected this out for 5 years with a 5% growth. And when I say we, the finance department and I sat down and came up with these numbers. So what we're projecting is the end of 5 years at 8%, we collect right about $1 million in hotel motel tax. I will say that this does not include the new hotel coming on board, so we anticipate those numbers being higher. This is just currently the inventory that we have now. But I think the key thing to look at here is that if we decide not to do the 8%, we'd lose $341,000 of potential revenue we could have collected that is not necessarily from the citizens of Villa Rica. So they benefit from it, but it's not coming from their pocketbooks per se. These are just some suggested projects that we were looking at. The gateway signs and directional signs we actually requested to be in the 2017 budget. We could actually use this increase in hotel motel tax to fund that, so that alleviates that money in the budget for other things. So then we can use those as Councilman Best articulated before. There's some other things, higher and best uses for the money. So this helps us be able to still do the projects but not impact the budget for the city of Villa Rica. And just moving forward, so what, if this is something that we decide that we need to do, we would pass a resolution here, then that would have to go to the General Assembly for a local act by the General Assembly. And then if that's approved and signed by the governor, then we would come back and pass an ordinance establishing what our tax rate would be, tax collection, pretty much similar to the ordinance that we have now, but just specifying what the percentage rate is. And that's how we move forward with the project. I think that was about 2 minutes. Definitely the fastest presentation that I've done.
You did good. Let me ask a question right off the bat. How does this compare to other cities around us as far as their percent?
Absolutely. Douglas County and Douglasville, two separate entities, and they both have 8% collection. And of course, we all know that Carrollton is submitting a resolution to the General Assembly this January, I assume, to change theirs to 8% as well. So we would be in line. We wouldn't be losing out, or people would say, oh, we're going to go to Douglasville because it's cheaper. And I would just like to say, I generally think that people who stay in hotels or motels, 90% of them fit in one of three categories. They're either you have leisure travelers, and a lot of those people are value shoppers. They go to Travelocity or Expedia or Hotels.com, and you don't really take into the tax rate when you do those. There's people who are traveling for work or conventions or workshops, training, stuff like that, and you generally stay at the hotel that is picked by the organization that is hosting the training, so you don't really take into account the tax rate there. And then you have people that are in these clubs or memberships. So if I'm in a Hilton, I'm going to stay in a Hilton no matter where it is, and you know, we're not looking at what the tax rate is. So I don't really believe that the tax rate impacts significantly where you stay as far as picking a hotel. There's so many other factors that you take into account before you think about, okay, is the tax rate 5% or 8%?
And I know Talladega weekends, every motel from here to Talladega, Alabama is full, so they're just looking for a place to stay.
Correct.
Okay, as I understand this, our take now is 3%, or actually 60% of the 5%.
Right.
And that wouldn't change if you go up to 8%. Tourism gets all the extra.
Right. And I will say, you know, these laws are written by states. Laws obviously have lobbyists. The way I look at it and read it is that the Chamber of Commerce, because in order to be a DMO, you have to be a nonprofit under Section 501c6. And only people who are incorporated as 501c6 are Chamber of Commerce. A lot of Chamber of Commerce, if not most of them, manage tourism entities. So CVBs are generally managed by Chamber of Commerce, which is why I think the law is written the way that it is. If you look at it, I mean, it makes sense that that's what's happened. So when they redid the law, this new law, I think it was around 2008, you can see where the cities and the probably Georgia Chamber of Commerce came to an agreement that they would do a 50-50 split on the monies, but it doesn't. But cities can use the money to build stuff where now you can't really do that. So I think that was the caveat. The chambers got 50% to spend for advertising and the CVBs, and the cities got 50% for infrastructure improvement, facilities, things like that.
Lisa, can you go back to the slide that showed the uses? You have that.
This slide here?
You had one page that showed all the uses that, I think it's a couple.
The line
One in the law,
Okay.
the DCA list.
Yeah, like Carrollton is using, one of
It's
theirs is for
sensitive.
a spur from the
I
green
just
belt,
pushed
it's one of their
There
we go.
items.
Okay, let me smoke this over for a minute. Boats, we can buy boats, I saw that. That's a joke, I'm not.
We have boat party fishing services, I mean.
We can buy airplanes.
Well, you know, like
helicopters.
think of those duck boats, those touristy things. Okay, where do I begin? Should I jump in here while y'all are looking at that? Okay, as someone who does, I love you. I appreciate the job you do and everything, and I need to say that because here it comes. Every time I make reservations on a hotel, I say, okay, so what's it really gonna cost me?
Right.
Because by the time they finish adding on all the fees, you find out that room just cost you another $20, so I shop around. I've noticed, oh, and then the state added on $5 more 2 years ago. They had added another $5. So when you have military families that have to be put up in accommodations, whether it's at the lodge over in Fort Stewart, wherever, everybody's paying all that. And then there's the nonprofits that shelter homeless people or families whose houses have burned down, stuff like that, that help those people pay those fees too. And we think, hey, well, we're just going to have all those people come into town and they're going to pay this and we're going to get all this benefit. Well, we are the people that also travel around and stay in those places. I stayed in Cleveland for the national convention, and when I checked out, it was $40 in fees and taxes each day. Now, it wasn't a cheap room. I was sharing with a roommate, but nonetheless, $40. And if you wanted to park your car there, that's going to be another $25, just like when we go to Savannah for the convention. They get you with the room cost, and the city's covering some of our training, things like that, but I still care about the cost. I don't care if someone else is paying it. $25. Oh, maybe they give us $12 break. I parked my car at the Cleveland Clinic to avoid a $25 fee a day. And so I should have kept that. So, and also I'd mentioned something you said, is that this is the max the state will allow. I don't want to be the city that charges the max the state will allow for us to tax on hotel motel. And I called a city council friend in Carrollton just to ask them, what were you thinking? But I haven't heard back from them yet. Maybe that's why. But there's a lot of other people that stay in these hotels, lesser ones, and they keep adding on fees all the time, just like that $5 one. So if we want to collect more tax, we've got to attract more people to the city. And I want to do those signs. If you get heads and beds, that's what they call it, heads and beds. You get people come to your city, you will get more tax when more people come without having to charge all the people more money. If you can fill up more rooms instead of them being empty, that's how you get more money, just like property tax. We could charge everybody more, or we could attract some more people to live here that want to help us carry the load. Okay, sorry.
That's fine.
That
No,
one just-
that's why I said 90%. Councilwoman McPherson would fit in that 10% bracket.
That shop around and check the room rates?
No, it's 8%, Chris.
8%. Oh, she's in the 8%? Yeah, oh, yeah, there you go, in the 8%.
Nobody else cares what they're paying.
No, I'm not saying that people don't care.
Well, I don't know.
what
Have
they're
Mecklin do one of those polls, or maybe it was Danny that did the poll that last time.
They don't care when their company's paying it, I can tell you that. If the company's picking it up, they don't care. But anyway, sorry.
That's
but
fine.
I'm just giving my part.
The city,
Now,
the city
for the-
doesn't get any more, though. They still get their three pennies to the dollar. That's as much as they're ever gonna get.
No, well, that's the tourism
Yeah,
development
tourism
money
gets the rest.
comes to the city too. So it's actually more like 4.5% is coming to the city. Right now, they're getting 3.
One of the reason, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I remember way back when teaching the thing in Georgia history where there was a half cent involved. I don't remember now that there is a half cent. 4.5 pennies?
Only when you buy gas.
Oh.
There's a fractional.
Okay.
Fractional pennies.
You can
Yeah.
do fractional
it's smart.
plus
It's
now.
smart because we collect 5 now. If we go to 8, that'd be 3. We split that 50-50. It's 1.
4.5.
Yeah.
You know, like those 1.5 cent bottle rockets.
Yeah.
One of the reason I asked to go back to that slide, Chris, I'm going to ask you a specific question, and I've already asked the city manager this. Can this money be used for concerts?
If the increase,
Yes.
the increase cannot. The 3% that we already collect can be used. And I would say that is probably a very good use of that money, because what's going to happen is if we have better acts and we have better hotels, we are going to attract those people that will stay here overnight.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. You sort of,
But it grows the money. you know, as I always tell people when I get up here, it's like, what is the highest and best use? If we can use that 3% that we collect to bring in acts that cause people to spend a night here.
Absolutely.
We're going to increase the money that you're generating.
Absolutely. We have one tourist attraction now in Villa Rica, and that's the Pine Mountain Gold Museum at Stockmar Park. And I know a portion of the money would go for that, if not out of the general fund budget. But one of the things that staff struggled for years with, and whoever, I'm not sure who does that actually now, but bringing the acts into the amphitheater, you know, we need to get some, and I'm not talking about big name acts, but we need to get somebody, and I don't want to use that other C word, city that's near us, but you know, they bring some pretty good sized bands, and when I go down there to see that, you know, the city's full, all the merchants are involved, and it's a good thing for the city. And of course, Milltown in Bremen brings big time acts, and that's not what I'm talking about
They're
doing.
private.
But I am, you know, Mother's Finest was, and well, I'm going to date myself. A lot of people in here don't even know who Mother's Finest is, but Ken does. He said he did. But, you know, I think if we, you know, a couple of times we had, one year we had, where are we going? One year we had Atlanta Rhythm Section for the July 3rd fireworks. One year we had Little Texas, and those were the best concerts. And I know somebody in this room that went to the Mother's Finest concert in Milltown, and I think he will testify to the fact that that was a pretty darn good concert. So I would just like for the city manager and staff to consider using a portion of that money to bring some acts to the Mill Amphitheater.
Well, I think that Chris knows that I started talking conversely about, I guess, how long you been here now? Over a year.
August 24th was a
Yeah.
long year.
Yeah, I know. So probably.
It could be longer.
Yeah, probably from the get-go, I've always shared this discussion and vision that we no pun intended, but we need to amp it up, if you will, at the mill and entertainment that we have in. Not only is it quality of life, but it does bring people into the cities, and I really appreciate what the Main Street has done. I mean, when you talk to the businesses, even the timing of events now are really designed to draw folks into the city, but then also push them to the local restaurants and establishments downtown. And so cooperatively, the machine's working, and so in the current budget, that's exactly what we were doing, was starting to isolate specific motel funding, because we didn't have that the structure last year. We do, it's in the budget. So the acts are cooperative. Part of it is the Parks, Rec, and Leisure Services Department. The other part is Main Street. And then, of course, you have the DDA. And so I think cooperatively you'll see better acts and better entertainment. So I continue to be optimistic and excited for what we're doing. But more importantly, to be able to find funding for the things that are in that RSVP plan. So I hear you, Mr. Mayor. I think staff's on the same page with you there, I'd be. Well, I'm just going to shut up there. The 8% is not bothering me. It's. I'm not going to decide personally. You have to have money in order to build, and when you build, they come, and I think we're headed in the right direction. We just need to decide if we're going to stand tall. It's a lot easier when you're the two largest cities in the county and you stand tall and you go with the General Assembly collectively all at the same time. It's a little harder when you're out there trying to do something different or catch up. And the folks that know us know that I don't like to play catch up. I like to be ahead of the curve, and so I'd like to be able to compete at the big boys table. And so I did call Chris and said, now's the time to strike on this one.
And I would like to say, and I'm not going to be here next week, so I just want to say that, I think the important thing to keep in mind with this is even better than Splosh, because a lot of people staying in hotels aren't residents of Villa Rica, and I understand what Councilwoman McPherson was saying. But this helps us accomplish a lot of the things that we want to do and free up money for infrastructure type things. because I know a gateway sign is always gonna lose out to if a pipeline busts, a sewer line needs to be replaced, if we can't get water out of, for drinking water. So, this is a great way to accomplish both of the things we need to do, free up more money to do infrastructure things, but also accomplish the projects, and the master plan is gonna help us to continue to grow our revenue in the city. And I think that's the way we should really look at it is, you know, these money gets reinvested into things that bring more people to the community to spend more money, so that then the people that work in our businesses can then turn around and have a quality of life that they want. So I think it really is a win-win for us as a city to do that.
Further questions of staff?
Yeah, you can probably use some of this money to buy you a watch. I mean, 3 minutes?
He said 3 minutes before the hour. Chris, make sure you email me that presentation so we can get it on tonight. That's number one. And then number two, Mr. Mayor, honestly, when I think we chatted yesterday, I don't know who that band is either. I just looked at you and smiled because I had no clue.
Just want to mention real quick, some of the big acts that they might have in our lovely neighbor city, Carrollton to the south, our neighbor, is when you
Oh, it's your neighbor, not
when
mine.
you get big sponsors, and, you know, one of the best country concerts I saw down there, they had big sponsor behind it, you know, that helped pay for it to come in and help the veterans. We can always do more by charging more taxes. I would like to see us prioritize our money, and we can always do more just by asking for more taxes. I think we're all taxed enough. Okay, last word, sorry.
Thank you. Tab F1, Hart House.
Mr. Mayor?
I'm sorry.
No, that's all right, because that's part of one of them. I've got to leave at 5 o'clock, so.
At 5? Is that 3 minutes to 5 or?
So with your indulgence, I've got about 3 or 4 items that I've waited around for because they're my responsibility.
Okay.
If I could do those, most of them are going to be just 1-sentence reports. So if you don't mind, if I could do it
Absolutely.
in that fashion.
Please do.
Central time, you'd be okay.
Going to number 3 first on the Mayor Pro Tem. That's a pretty simple report. Based on the charter amendment that we made, which created the interim mayor position, it's my opinion that now that we have an elected mayor, that Ms. Marchman, who was the mayor pro tem before she moved up to being the interim mayor, now slides back to being the mayor pro tem through December 31st. Then in January, the council is going to elect a new mayor pro tem like they normally would.
Next.
Okay, number 5 on the city charter. We have committed throughout this process that we would wait to make sure that we had a full council and had a representative of Ward 4 before we moved forward on that. As of next Tuesday, we should know who the next representative of Ward 4 will be. I think that, I don't know that this needs to be on the agenda for next Tuesday. Soon thereafter, however, once we do have somebody who's been appointed or elected to that position, that we do need to start taking steps to form a schedule about moving forward so that we can get a new charter before the legislature if we choose to do so next year.
I would like to see us just remove this from the agenda completely next Tuesday, if that's okay with
I think it
council.
could be taken off for next Tuesday.
What, the number 5?
Number 5, yes.
Okay.
Because we won't have our other person yet. I mean,
Right. Next.
Number 6, the senior exemptions. I plan on making a presentation at the meeting next Tuesday. I mean, I could do it right now, but I'd just be giving you the exact same presentation that I would be giving you next Tuesday. So I would say to leave that on the agenda. I plan to make a full report of my legal research on that, to tell the city what you can do going forward on the senior exemptions to ad valorem tax. All right. Then going back to 1A on the Hart House, and I am going to stand up and walk out after this, no offense to anybody, but I'm already late. But on the Hart House agreement, city manager, the mayor, and myself met with the trustees of the First Baptist Church yesterday and had a very, very good discussion. I'm optimistic that we will be able to work out an agreement that will be satisfactory to everybody. We are not going to have an agreement ready by next Tuesday to be before you to vote on. The First Baptist Church trustees are fine with that. They want to make sure we do this right also, so that there's no misunderstanding about it. I do want to leave a positive, optimistic view on it, that we can get this worked out to everyone's satisfaction. But I don't think you're going to be voting on anything next Tuesday night on that.
Are we going to take that off?
Unless we just want to make that same report. But
Okay.
I don't think there'll be anything to vote on next Tuesday night.
I guess we ought to leave it on because it's been on for a while.
I think we at least owe it to the,
Leave it on so that I can say that same
Yes.
thing, so that people will know that
Something's going on, okay?
we're not in an argument right now. All right, and so those are my reports.
thank you, David.
Don't speed now.
Okay, tab,
If you'll keep the chief here.
Get a police escort.
tab FB, are we gonna have a presentation by the Billerica Area Historical Society tonight and next Tuesday, or? So this is just for council's knowledge so that we can have it on the agenda for next Tuesday.
Is there a presentation tonight? 1B.
Yeah, you'll be given an opportunity you'll be on the agenda next Tuesday night.
Oh,
No,
hold on,
they're
I'm sorry.
today, I thought.
As a work session, they're gonna make a presentation
That's what my
tonight,
question
but
was.
they're not on Tuesday. So
That's
if I
true.
misunderstood you, I'm sorry. They're on tonight only, and they're here, but they're not on Tuesday's agenda.
Okay, so I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No.
Please proceed, sir. Absolutely. Come to the podium if you would. State your name and address for the record.
Yeah, I'm Jack Hart. I am the president of the Billerica Historical or Area Historical Society. I reside at 556 Old Sooty Road, Hiram, Georgia.
Are you one of the original Harts?
Sir?
Your name
Yes,
is-
sir. I am the grandson, or the
He's
great.
heart of the heart.
Yeah, the great
Heart of the
grandson.
Hearts.
The great grandson of the man that built the house down
Okay.
there. That y'all are aware of the house, right?
Yes.
Boy, we aware of the
Are
house.
you aware? Anyway, in 1824, there's a lot to be said though here for the history of this area. It's one of the most prolific historical areas in the state, I think. There is so much that's happened here in this country. I mean, in this area that has given to our country. I mean, dating all the way back to the native residents and the Revolutionary era and the Civil War and all. But first, I did want to thank you all, Mr. Mayor and the council, for allowing us to make a presentation before you to give you some idea of what the Historical Society is trying to accomplish. And I want to thank the historical group here that's here. There's quite a few here, if you'll notice, that are really dedicated to, you got to say they are dedicated to getting something going on, especially the old house. One of the builders of the house was a young man that was named Leathers, and his great-grandson is here tonight to make a presentation to you. The Leathers family, which contributed quite a bit economically to Carroll County, is Dr. McBrayer. He's Dr. Reverend McBrayer, and he's our authority on the Historical Society. He's done a number of historical processes in the area, and so I'm going to turn it over to Dr. McBrayer to bring you the presentation. And again, thank you for letting us talk to you tonight.
Thank you very much. I know it's late in the evening, and you're tired, but I would like for Ms. McPherson to know that I live on McPherson Street in Bremen. Maybe you'll be tuned into me a little bit here. In your packet, there should be the highlights of the factors in support of the Hart Plantation House. Does everyone have that in your packet? If not, we have extra copies for you. And I appreciate so much the city manager for his cooperation in helping us. We have today Mr. John Bailey has a script of the Hart Town, and the gold mines there were before the ones in our neighboring county. In other words, in this county were the first gold mines in this area. So John, if you will, is John still here? Yeah. John, if you'll talk a little bit about this, it's going to be on your map, the diagram of the location of the place. John has done a lot of work on this, just for you to see this briefly, and then we'll try to. One thing while he's coming, I'd like for you to know that I'm the champion cotton picker of Haralson County. I'd like for that to be shown on the record, please.
Okay, now, most of you probably know me, especially if you've been out to the gold mines. I've been there since just about right after they opened, been a volunteer. I usually volunteer 2 days a week there. And plus, what we're working on the Hart House, I spend more time at Villa Rica than I do at home. I tell everybody I sleep at home and I work and live in Villa Rica. But when I get into history, I try to get facts, and I've found a lot of hidden facts about this area and about Hart Town and the gold mines around there. And I've got some things I've got leads on, but I hadn't quite proven them yet. But like Jack said earlier, we're going to have a history here that's going to be unbelievable for anything in Georgia, not just Villa Rica, for the whole of Georgia. We've got, well, you can look at the map and see some of the things, but we can relate to 2 or 3 things. The Indians, when they were here, when the French and the English were here, there was a proclamation line, kind of an imaginary line that they drew all the way up the United States, and part of it runs through the edge of this county, and which close to Dark Color and the Pine Mountain Gold Mine, and then the gold mine itself out here at Hart Town. When Hart first came here, McIntosh, when he was murdered, Hart was here. So you can imagine he was probably afraid of what was going on. But anyway, the history goes back to little things like this that just, once we get it all printed up and it's all going to be documented, so we won't have anybody say, well, that's not true. But in some history, though, it's kind of like a court trial. You can never find the proof. So you're going to have to, circumstantial evidence will pretty much as truth as you're going to get. But one thing, too, the Hart House and our group, we're going to be a force in this area for tourism because we're all fired up. We fired up more than anybody else. And we know as far as the property and the church and stuff goes, Villa Rica is involved and the church is involved, but we rarely get any feedback on it. So we're kind of the little stepchilds right now, but we're so positive about it. And I come up to the conclusion on the way to the door earlier, if the city don't want it, the church don't want it, we want it. So if anybody wants to worm out, we're here to take the land in the building. Because we're going to do most of the upkeep and the restoration and all this. We're not, so far we hadn't asked the city for a dime, and we're doing it all ourselves. But it doesn't matter which way it goes. I'm just going to let you know that we're going to be here to help get this city and the Hart House and stuff on the maps in Georgia. Once you find out what we finally get done, it's going to be unbelievable. And I won't stay too long because it's supper time.
We just eat chocolate for supper, see, we have it up here.
Hi, Council. Kim Poor, 326 North Avenue. I'm on the Historic Commission, City of Villa Rica, as well as the Area Historical Society. I have 6 short sentences I want to read, and then I'm done. This has to do with historic preservation, tourism, money coming in, heads to beds, and all that good stuff. This is a historic preservation attracting visitors, good news in tough times through the Georgia economy, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, historic areas in their primary interest, which equals visiting historic areas is a primary reason. 73% of whom visit a historic site stay an average of 8 days longer and spend 220 more than other tourists. 4 times as many international tourists visit historic sites than play golf. You got to keep the ladies happy, sorry. In a challenging economic time, what's a far-sighted local government to do? Identifies the assets, the Hart House, to make distinctive, differentiated in order to be competitive in the long term. And what does a historic preservation-based local economy development strategy do? Develop your local historical sites. That's what we're working toward. If you take a look at this package that they've put together, you can see that what we want to do is turn the Hart House and the surrounding acreage into a reenactment site or a living farm, a working farm. And I know that Salem and Williamsburg and everything else is tremendously huge, but we can do that on a smaller scale here. That's what we're working toward. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Very quickly, this ties in beautifully to the last presentation on tourism and what it does for us, even though we have to pay out of our pocket sometimes. This money is an investment in our future, and we just heard a good report before this presentation. It's news to us that we're glad to hear. I understand there's an agreement been worked out, so this again will be information for you, but this is a very important project. Remember, this development in Harttown involved some 500 acres. It had the slave quarters next to the house. So we hope to replicate this time in our history of Harttown and to give you this information. If I overlooked any basic thing that we need to say this afternoon with our group, or anything else, any question that I could answer real quickly?
I only have one.
I don't really have a question. It was really more of a comment for someone who loves history. I'm not a historian, but I love history, and we do travel to go see things, even if it's Cartersville or Rome. And and this is not pandering, I promise you. I am very grateful for people like you who take a passion to revive and, I guess, keep this stuff for a local community. And I've found that citizens that have a passion for something, that truly care about it, get the job done a lot better than government does, because their heart, H-E-A-R-T, is in it. It's something they love and care about. And so I just want to thank y'all, because I know nobody pays you to do it. It's volunteer, just like working out the Gold Museum, which would be nowhere if it weren't for volunteers. So just a thank you for what y'all are doing.
And Mr. Mayor, I mentioned one thing, fairness in terms of Carroll County. Some weeks ago in a press release, I read that this body was interested in doing more things to preserve the history in that part of town. Does anybody remember that? I read something in the press that the council was aware of the need to do more to attract attention to our history in the Carroll County Park. The other part is great. I've been to it's a great thing, but I think this has great potential for us, and I appreciate your thoughtful support. Thank you.
And I appreciate y'all's efforts too. And John, I'm just going to say I worked with John for many years, of course, in the Parks and Recreation Department. And a lot of people refer to John as Mr. Pine Mountain. He took it very seriously. He dressed up in costume, and a lot of kids now believe that he is the person that lives on the mountain, I think, at Pine Mountain. So, but just know that in what you may have heard, part of my platform was preserving the past, and I think we need to do that. Any smart city preserves the past, because if you don't remember your past, you'll never know what your future is. And so I'm completely behind that effort. And John, thank you, and all the volunteers that work hard. So, any other discussion? Okay, if not, item 2, intergovernmental agreement, Mr. David.
That's your chocolate. I got tempted, but I left your
All right,
chocolate.
let's see, number 2, this is a proposed intergovernmental agreement between the City of Billerica and Carroll County. There's been a lot of discussion over the last several months about the Post 4 facility that is being renovated on Highway 61, State Route 61, on just south of Billerica. The county wants to partner with the City of Billerica to finish this project. The question that comes up is what happens to the old site? The old site, that land then reverts back to the county, and they have, as I understand it, earmarked it for the future station number 9, given the growth and expansion of the city. But they cannot finish the facility without the cooperative efforts of the city. Certainly, they have opened that facility up for use of the City of Billerica for training and otherwise. In fact, the county's actually handed over keys to the city to be able to use the facility. But they have put specific things in an MOU. And one of those things that was negotiated out was that the county would cooperate with the city should it look to annex south, on the south part of the city, that they would actually then allow the facility to come into the city. The reason that's important is whenever you look at expansion of the city, annexation, things of that nature, you have to have contiguous properties. So that is one thing that's in the agreement. They are requesting a cooperative effort of the city at $191,500, and they have broken that out and specified what is needed to finish off the project. Those are furnishings, office for the office and barracks, the security fence, the security system, the exterior sign. When this project is being done at significant lower cost than what was originally projected to renovate the existing. Whenever you want to keep a post or have a post in your county, it's on the backs of the county and the taxpayers. And in this case, if you want to be able to keep the Department of Natural Resources and the State Patrol here in Carroll County servicing this area, this cooperative effort's necessary to make it happen. If the city participates, we anticipate that there'll be an act of the General Assembly when it meets early next year. As soon as we can finish the location, a temporary order be drafted so the troopers can go ahead and relocate into the new one, and then it would be made official early next year, at which time the county would like to join with the city on a formal dedication of the building, including a bronze plaque on the side of the building, and joining the elected officials from both governments. So I know that the mayor and I have toured the facility. Councilman Carter has toured the facility, I believe. Councilman Best is touring it Friday, I believe. I do have keys. I gladly will take any other council member that wants to tour the facility at their convenience. So that's the staff presentation.
Council?
Is there any other cities in the county going to be asked to donate as well?
The chairman, the county commission chairman, has informed me that he has reached out to other local governments, including Douglas County, and does have some, I guess what you would say, commitments in principle at this point. They talked about SPLOST dollars and others, but I'm not party firsthand to what those commitments are, sir.
I would like to say this. I was shocked to see the deplorable conditions in the posts that we have now. I wouldn't stay in that place. I just wouldn't. There's mold. There's so much water in the basement area that they have a sump pump in there to pump the water out. I didn't know, even though I drive by it every day. I had no idea. I did notice several years ago that the Georgia State Patrol officers stopped staying there overnight, and now I understand why. So as long as I've been in Villa Rica, there's always been a post in Villa Rica, a Georgia State Patrol office post, and I think that means something. But one other thing, and Chief, feel free to jump in here anytime you want to, but this is not going to be just a Georgia State Patrol office or post. It's also going to be training facilities for those officers, but also, they've reached out to us, and I know Chief Mansour is really, really excited about those prospects, about having a place that he can train our officers and have, cooperative events with different, bring in other police departments and really show the city off. And but I think that, the main thing that I would like the council to consider is, like I said, there's always been a post here in Villa Rica. And, I think it's, yes, it's going to cost us a little bit of money, but the brunt of this money, I don't know what the number is, but the number is, for the county portion of it, is significantly larger than Villa Rica. And it's going to be here in the city of Villa Rica, we would hope, once that's annexed in, if that's the pleasure of this council. So, to the extent that, yes, we're in a crunch, yes, the money's going to have to come somewhere, and I'm sure the city manager is going to tell us where that's going to be. But, I think we at least need to consider it.
Since there's a fire station on Industrial Boulevard, that's less than a mile from this piece of property. I personally think the county ought to turn that piece of property, the old piece of property, over to the city so that we can use it, because it's a nice piece of property we could use for development.
I don't see how we can't participate to some degree, because we're going to benefit from it being in Villa Rica, but I didn't quite understand what you said about the annexation and the contiguous property, how that relates.
Right now, the city has sewer easements all the way down to the strip mall and the Methodist church down there. So basically, from the Vplex to that intersection corner at Van Wert and 61, in order to be able to, for future development and secure the annexation of that, basically you would use the city property through the Vplex, utilize the utility easements, and then that allows you then to leapfrog to that intersection and then basically annex contiguous properties. So if the city council at some point decides that, so basically in the negotiations, what we're doing is putting the marker on the table that should the city look at some point of expanding on the south, this gives you a cooperative effort as a memorandum of understanding from the get-go that the county will not stand in the way, because you always have to ask the county when you start the annexation. So they've already cooperatively said, Villa Rica, you're a partner to us. Let's go ahead and put that in the agreement, and we'll work through that process when and if the council elects to move there.
Thank you.
It would seem we need to own the property. If we're going to put $200,000 in it.
You can't own a state post. In fact, the current one that the county owns, so the current post, the county owned the property, but when you go into the agreement of the post, the ownership reverts to the state, and then when the post is no longer used, it then reverts back to who the owner was, in this case, the county. So in this case, the county has gone in and they've committed, I believe the figure was $1 million. They've bought the a physical facility for somewhere in the neighborhood, I believe, $800,000 and some change, and then they've have utilized the remainder of the $1 million for renovation. Plus, they've used prison crews and staff. And then once they then go to the legislature, the property will revert to the state control and state ownership. And then at any time that the state chooses no longer to house or stay in that post or abandon that post, it will revert back to the county.
So you're considering this a neutral site?
Right now,
Basically,
you're investing in the law enforcement services, if you will, of this region.
But you're saying it's a neutral site?
Well, it'll be state. It won't be county. It won't be city.
I know,
It will be state.
like a school.
Yes, it's very neutral, if you will.
Well, the reason I'm saying that now is because we have a policy and whatever that we don't extend sewer outside the city.
Well, I don't know about outside the city. You already have existing right smack next to it. So again, if that's, again, no, if the city was to connect sewer to this state patrol, this governing body has the option in the agreement to move forward and bring that property into the city accordingly.
Has he got a septic tank right now?
Yeah, literally our sewer is across the street. And literally, I mean, that if you're standing there, you look at the strip mall right there. It's right there.
Yeah, it's right there. It comes in front of the parking lot of the strip mall, across the vacant property, and then into the Methodist church.
Mm-hmm. So the county has asked the city to join them in this cooperative effort to make this happen. I know the chairman has said that he anticipates the growth of the officers to increase now that the governor's got behind the pay increases. They've struggled with being able to keep officers and fill open positions. He anticipates that eventually that the overall staffing of this facility is going to grow. They also have additional barracks in there. So Carroll County has had more disaster declarations than any other county in the state, and so cooperatively they can actually almost double their staff, and they still have cooperative showers, bedding, et cetera, for them if they had to relocate additional staff for any reason to this county. At the end of the day, the commission chairman and certainly the county commission was worried that if the county didn't step up immediately, that the barracks would probably go north, maybe into Douglas County or somewhere else.
I was fixing to say, if we don't do this, where's it going to go?
They've already put a lot of money into it.
Somebody
else is going to invest in it.
I'm saying if we don't do this, where is the post 4 going to go?
I am assuming that by hook and crook, the county's going to basically tell the state, well, we can't make up the difference.
I think there's a requirement that the state or the post 4 state patrol has to be in Carroll or Douglas County, since that's the two counties they patrol. And I also think there's a 3-mile variance or limit between that and the interstate. But if we don't do this, where's it going to go? Douglas County? Yes, maybe, but that's what I'm saying, if we don't do it. So the bottom line of this whole scenario is we need to do this because we want to keep it in Carroll County, 3 miles away from the interstate. They already go to Bowden, Mount Zion, anything in Carroll County and anything in Douglas County. If I'm not mistaken, there's 5 troopers on the road at any one time, 2 in Carroll, 2 in Douglas, and 1 that moves back and forth.
Sometimes there always seems to be way too many behind me.
If you don't drive 85, you ain't worried about that.
I actually want to keep it in Villa Rica too.
No, I drive on 20.
It's a good thing for Villa Rica.
If other cities will help, or Douglas, that'd be great. Or Douglas County.
I think I hear everybody saying we need to keep this on the agenda for Tuesday night. Okay. Moving along. Item 4, open records.
Let's see, our city clerk, of course, she goes to lots of training, and through that training, the Carl Vinson Institute of Government has given guidance to the city clerks and has also published a city clerk's manual and has encouraged them that if they don't already create their own retention schedules, that they should adopt the state's. However, there's a caveat to that. In the past, the city utilizes the state's local government and judicial retention schedules, but it actually adopted a specific version of them. So the advice through the State Clerks Association is that you adopt them, but you don't adopt a specific version. You simply say through resolution that the local government record retention schedules by the state archives and the judicial branch retention schedules by the state archives will be one and the same as the retention schedule for the city of Villa Rica. So if the council is comfortable with that, then there would be a resolution. Is he not already drawn that up? Yeah, okay. Oh, ordinance. Basically, there's a draft ordinance that's they have. It's not my book.
Yeah.
Okay, we all got it. I don't have it.
2316 CCO.
So that ordinance is there for your consideration.
Discussion?
There's got to be layman terms to put that in. A little, I don't know, a little clearer for some of us.
Nope.
It's very convoluted. Which part would you
we're gonna
like
hold
to
on
be
to
more
things for a
clear?
certain number of days. I just don't quite
Or
get
years,
it.
or years.
Right.
Years.
Days,
Well,
years.
Yeah, and I kind of got the gist of what this was, but what does it mean for us, Villa Rica, this retention schedule?
Okay, all right. It basically.
Reader's Digest version.
Yes, it basically defines all of the various types of local government documents that we create or maintain. So if we do actually maintain or create any of those documents, it gives the city guidance on how long it must retain those and when it is okay to destroy those. For instance, the councilman, Danny Carter, had reached out to me recently and said, how come the city still doesn't have like the permit plans for the lift station at the church? And before I answered him, I obviously looked to see if we had them. We didn't have them. And he had a follow-up question. I went to the retention schedule real quick and said, well, actually, we're not required to maintain them past, was it 7 years? Yeah, I think. So it gives guidance as to why we have records or don't. Another member of the governing body recently came in and said, you know, this government no longer has certain pay stub material. So I gave them a page from the retention schedule and said they're required to keep those. Maybe it was 50 years or indefinitely, I don't recall, maybe it was 50 years. It's like, so go back and feed them this and say they're required to have them for 50 years. So basically, it governs our public records as to what we're supposed to keep, how long we're supposed to keep them, and when we can destroy them.
Tells you what you can do with the records. Boom, let's go.
Further discussion. Moving right along. The next item, item 7, is requested by Councilman McPherson about the Recreation Advisory Commission.
Yeah, I've gotten some feedback. Oh, let me preface it with this. Over at the Connors Park, because this has been something I think a lot of us noticed from the time we did the tour, as far as the consideration of putting up signs, letting people know that property is owned by the city, the deer stands that are in there. I don't think we should go in and just grab the deer stands and discard them. I think we should give people the opportunity to retrieve them. But I'd probably prefer that we not be over there walking where there's deer stands. But maybe for liability purposes, some kind of signage so people know that that's not just, that property is not in limbo somewhere. Anyway, but I just wanted to preface that. Now, on the Recreation Advisory Board itself, or the Parks and Recreation Board, is this. I'm getting quite a bit of feedback from recreation members that they feel like they're not being included to advise, and that's why we pointed them and looked over those applications and chose people, and that they're not being included the way they should be advisory, including what we have on our website. Nope, that relates to the library, never mind. And part of it goes back to the meetings, and I have just 3 questions that have to do with those charrettes. The first charrette, which I didn't even know what that was till we started having them, gathering to start talking about what was going to happen with Connors Park, and that was a big selling point on getting people on that advisory thing is, hey, we have all these acreage, we're going to need people to help plan this. The first charrette, as far as I know, it was requested by at least one person on the board that the meeting be changed because none of the advisory people could be at the first one. And I think we had one person attend. So that's a concern to me. When none of the board people could even be there, and they're our advisory board for Parks and Recreation. The second meeting, it's my understanding that there were about 20 people, a number of staff, at least several people from Falcon. So here's my questions. Statement. I want to make sure that the advisory board is being allowed to be an advisory board. If none of them can be at a meeting, maybe we should change the date. Number 2, are we paying money for whatever venue we're using? I did not make the charrettes, only the tour. Were they always at the same location? Were we paying for that? Are we paying for how many staff members to be there? And are we paying the Falcon people additional money, or are we paying them in general for all these services, which include those charrettes, for them to be there, for us to have maybe one person there or 20 people? And lastly, does Falcon have any experience with passive parks?
You asked a lot of questions.
Okay,
Maybe I'll just start a
repeat
little
if you
bit
need. Okay.
from the beginning, specifically related to the Connors Road Park and the planning and the Recreation Advisory Committee. I will certainly say that the very first meeting of the Recreation Advisory Committee, one of the things that I talked about was there's certainly going to be planning initiatives that we do, that it won't just be limited to the 3 people, that we will be going out to the community at large, depending on the nature of the project. So
which 3 people are we talking about? The 3 people? Who's the 3 people?
Currently on is Michael Young.
We have 7
Kim
people on there, don't we?
It's not fully staffed, no.
We fully staffed it, didn't we, last year? Some people drop off?
It just haven't shown up.
Have we contacted them?
Oh, I include them on every email that goes out.
Okay, well, we need to know that, because if we appointed people and they're not showing up.
5 and there's 2 vacancies.
Okay, there's 5 and 2. Yeah, y'all please let us know. If there's any boards where people are not attending and we appointed them, we need to know. That way we can either say, hey, you gonna go? Because we need to get somebody else in there. Okay.
At the very first meeting, we had 3 that attended. But that was really at the time to explain, these are how advisory committees work, to talk about how I would seek input from them on projects or initiatives that would be going forward. But specifically, we talked about the Connors Road planning process, because that was going to be the one that everyone was certainly most excited about. But I talked at the very beginning to say, hey, this is going to be one of those projects that is going to extend beyond the group that's here, because it's one that is going to have a big impact on the community, so we'll be going out. So that was stated really at the very first meeting, so people could understand when it would just be those who were appointed on the board versus, hey, we're going to go out and be all-inclusive so we can really make some of these initiatives the best that they can be. So the initial Connors Road meeting that I was setting up with the Recreation Advisory Board, I sent out the notice to the meeting and gave the 2 dates, what were going to be the first 2 dates that were initially set up. Set that first meeting out, had some additional conversation that we may want to actually invite some of the people, a few people who live a little bit closer, so I make sure that everyone in the Mirror Lake is well informed. So I did have those individuals who said they weren't going to be able to make it, but I'd already sent out some additional invites to select members in the Mirror Lake community. So what I said is I didn't want to cancel that meeting altogether since I had already put the information out and I had people responding back saying that they were going to be able to come. And I informed the Recreation Advisory Committee. I said it's okay because we have the second meeting and the dates are already out to the public on when the second meetings are. So again, if you were, I mentioned to them, we're going out to the public. We're going to combine all of the comments really at the end. And as a community, we will prioritize initiatives, we'll put together the vision. So that's really how that came about. It wasn't really an effort to exclude. It was really more one where we're going to make this particular planning process as inclusive as possible. So
did we have one person attend?
at the very first meeting,
John Hannebeck?
two people showed up.
Okay, do we?
Well, actually, that's not actually an accurate statement. You had two citizens, you had, actually, there was a staff member who's actually on the ad hoc part just for the committee. So by the time
I
you,
didn't count.
you know.
I didn't want to count.
So, but
others that
yes,
were
I'll
on
be the
ad
first
hoc.
to say, the first meeting was not well attended. Two,
It's a Saturday in the fall. It's rough to get people out. Soccer, it's fall festival time, it's
it's
wicked
tough to get
hot
out anyone.
on a
at
Saturday,
any time.
And so
especially.
what I talked about very early was, I said, you know, when we meet in the evening, I always try to be very respectful of people's time. I said, very front, may have to move this to a Saturday so that we can have a little bit more time. I try not to go beyond 8 o'clock in the evening on meetings during the week, but that was really, I talked about what that was. The second meeting, that was generally open to the public, we got a much bigger audience. I did not know, I set that meeting at the venue. That's one that we paid money for. Set that meeting at the venue because I really wanted to find a place that was closer to where the park was.
Where was the first one?
The first one was at the
V-Plex.
V-Plex.
Okay, all right, first one V-Plex, then you were at the venue, okay.
Yes, so I was really trying to have a location that was closer to the area, if you will, that I thought more people would come out. And so that's really why we ended up at this particular location. But if you're asking, is there or was there ever an effort to exclude anyone, that absolutely was not the case. What I find.
No, I did not ask if there was an effort to exclude anyone.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure they were. I don't think you're like going around, who can we get rid of now? I don't want you to think I was making an accusation like that, but to make sure that they can be involved because they are our appointees. We want other citizens to be asked, but first should be the advisory committee that's involved helping advise, give advice to you and whoever else is involved. Okay. So we did pay, I don't know how everybody else feels. I hate to see us pay for a venue when we've got city buildings people can meet in. I mean, that's my personal opinion. Let's save money. Why should we pay for the venue if we don't need it when we've got our own venues?
And
But
to answer
that's just my
your
opinion.
question, I sought all of the venues that the city has. They just were all booked. And they're typically booked pretty far out. So I looked at Powell Park, I looked at the senior dining facility, they were all booked. So that's why when I got the dates that I could secure, I had to send them all out really at one time and inform the public.
So when we have those events, are we having paid staff at those events? And are the Falcon people paid to come out? Or are they getting paid in a sum that includes those, which means they're getting paid, they're just not getting paid item?
It's a lump sum, it's not.
They're not on the clock.
They're not on the clock. Same with our staff, in a sense. We're not incurring overtime with those individuals that I asked to come. I really asked to come on the tour. Number one, it was, I want to make sure that the senior managers are very familiar with where our new park is going to potentially be. So it wasn't hourly staff that was out there walking around. People are gonna come in and people are gonna ask questions, and so usually the senior managers that may be around, I just wanted to make sure that they were informed and are aware.
So at the charrettes, are we paying staff to be at the charrettes?
At the charrette, I was the only staff member, but in terms of when we went out to walk the property, I made sure that the other members were there. So it was myself and the other consultants.
I learned a new word. I didn't know what charrette was.
Either did I.
Watch your language.
I still don't know that I know how to spell it, but I know how to pronounce it now because I've heard it. Does Falcon have passive park experience?
They do have experience with parks. So
Passive parks.
I don't know specifically passive parks, but certainly parks in general, yes.
Okay. This would be, and I can only speak for myself, so everybody else will have to speak for themselves. And this is where maybe the advisory committee might come in handy. If we're going to go hire somebody that we're going to pay to develop 100, or help us develop 159 acres, I know we don't have to do bidding. We don't have to do bidding for professional services, but it seems to me that it might be some good advice that might come out of that advisory committee, that we hire somebody who has experience in the thing that we're wanting to help them with. And part of the reason that stood out to me is I came on the tour, and I have to be honest, and please don't, I know this sounds kind of negative, please don't take this at all personal, because I do not mean it that way. For me, it was a walk in the woods with my grandson and the dog. I lacked any information that really helped me know, why are we out here walking this and what are we accomplishing? Now, I know the bike people, maybe they picked up some tips, but for me, I felt like my time was totally unproductive there, other than I had a nice walk in the woods with my grandson and the dog. And so I'm just thinking that maybe if we involve the advisory committee a little bit more and get a little bit more feedback on how we do this thing so it doesn't become a money pit. So we're not paying people to be at a meeting where one person is there. Or we don't have a company that we're paying to do something they've never done before, and just that sort of thing. So that's my concern. I think you answered just about every question I had on that, but that's why I care about it. I'm a little upset.
Yeah, I will
Not
certainly
at you.
say the concern going out with just doing it with the advisory committee is I was trying to have a situation where it wasn't just 3 people, that I could really have a much broader conversation. Now that it ended up on average, instead of being 3, just 2, certainly it creates some issues, but one of the things, again, that I tried to convey, all of these comments are coming back together. Now, if, I can certainly understand, since you weren't part of the earlier charrette meetings and discussion, but really the purpose of the walk, we spent the previous meeting talking about visioning and what people wanted to see in the parks, bikes, trails, being able to walk, but people hadn't actually been out on the property. You know, people would say, hey, there's some great vistas out there, but to your point, the bike folks, they were really the only people willing to run up and run all over the park and jump to see where the vistas were. Part of it was about, look, get out here and experience the land itself to know, how is all this going to reconcile? What are the things you said you thought you wanted? Now, once you actually get out here, you walk and you get a feel for the site, let us know if there's anything in particular that comes to mind that now that you see it, we need to take special note of it. Now, we knew going in we weren't going to be able to walk the entire property, but it gives them an opportunity to move from just generating all these ideas to, okay, now that you're out here walking firsthand, how are you going to put all this together when we come back to say, okay, let's start prioritizing the things that you said you originally wanted to see prior to even going out there.
I think this started out as a discussion about the Recreation Commission, so let's, in the interest of time at least. But I would like to point out, I just happened to look in the audience, and almost 50% of the audience right now, the citizens were on the Recreation Advisory Commission when I was the director. Willie Marchman and Prissy Sullivan were both on that. Willie, I think, was on the board when I started the commission, when I started in 2001 with the Recreation Department, and stayed on it for. Are you on it now, by the way? Prissy, are you on it now?
No.
Okay. I just, let me just conclude the statement, if you don't mind, by saying that I think our boards are very important to the community, and I hope our department heads and city manager feel the same way. I feel he does. I talked to him about it yesterday. He actually made a very good suggestion that I meet with the chairmans of all those boards on a quarterly basis, and I'm going to try my best to do that, just to make sure that we do have participation on the board. But I can tell you the quickest way to lose your board, and that's to not give them something to do. And because people, their time is very valuable. And I know when Prissy was on it and Willie was on it, we did a lot of things, a lot of really important things. And the most important thing that they did every year, I think, was choose a volunteer of the year. And I'm not sure how you do that now. I'm not suggesting how you do it, because that's your job. But I would just say that to keep boards energized, you have to give them something to do, because people just aren't going to show up and sit there for an hour and a half for no reason. Reviewed the budget before I submitted it. So just a general statement about boards. So anything else? Okay, next item is, thank you, Vicki.
Thanks, Vicki.
Where are we at? Okay, we're at item 8.
Number 8.
Resolution.
Yep.
All right, Mr. Mayor, this is a resolution. I've spoken about this multiple times, but just to put it in a nutshell, now that the Douglas County SPLOST has been passed, you will not receive any of that money until the latter part of 2017. So this resolution's been presented to the city attorney, reviewed by the city attorney, and allows this council, based on its adopted budget, to loan itself money from its general fund in specific buckets that were already the buckets established in the SPLOST referendum. And that as that SPLOST money comes in, basically repay yourself, and it allows you to jumpstart projects in 2017. In this case, as I've mentioned in the past, the voters passed a SPLOST. They expect that you're going to move forward. So instead of waiting for 9 or 10 months to get started on applying any of that, it allows you to move forward appropriately. So in your proposed 2017 budget, you have items that are assigned to D as in David, SPLOST, and that's how these will have to be paid for, is by loaning yourself money.
Thank you, sir. Next item is
Yeah, this thing doesn't mention the
Oh,
caps or
sorry.
anything, doesn't mention amounts. Just, it's open-ended. I don't like open-ended funding.
It's open-ended because you all dictate the projects in the budget. So all this is a mechanism to loan yourself money. It's not an authorization to spend. Those are two different things. The authorization to spend comes through the budgetary process. So in the budget, those are your 2017 Douglas County SPLOST proposed projects.
I have one question. It's at the bottom of the page where it says item 2, repayment of the general fund from SPLOST proceeds. And it says that the city will reimburse the general fund, but what ties us into knowing when, and I guess in a sense cuffs us to the fact that we have to do it, it has to be done within a certain period of time, so it's not just, well, we'll pay it back, but maybe 5 years down the road. Am I missing, is it somewhere else, or?
No, actually, when you do a budget amendment, so you'll be moving money from your fund balance to your general fund in order to cover specific projects. So penny for penny, as that money comes in, you're going to have to pay back whatever you loaned yourself.
You said when it comes in, we have to.
Yes.
What holds us to the,
Nothing
what holds
legally.
us to have to do it within a certain period of time and not delay it? I just want to make sure that we're pushed to put that money back, because if we keep spending our savings account, we don't make sure we reimburse it, and we really do have another bad problem happen, we're going to be up the creek.
What controls that? The governing body controls that. You control the budget and how you allocate funds and money. Staff doesn't allocate those funds.
Do we set the interest rate as to what we're going to charge ourselves?
So we could lock ourselves into saying, we will start.
I don't know where you're gonna come up with the money for the interest, but,
I just don't want us to not have a time that we have to pay it back within.
Yeah.
It just says, we'll pay it back. So,
yeah, well, I will, you know, for transparency, I will tell you that, under Georgia law, if you don't get enough money to come and cover your marker, then basically it's almost like you just use general fund. So your budgetary controls is to make sure that when you put specific projects in your budget, you anticipate what's going to come in. So staff has very carefully run calculations to anticipate what's going to come in. You're covering the marker for the fact that if you start in 2017 as year one, although it's not until April 1st that 1 penny goes into effect, it's probably September, October before you start seeing money. So you'll always be in arrears. So by the time 7 years is up, you probably have completely repaid what, and then you conservatively cap your budgeted projects so that you don't overextend yourself as to what will actually be realized. So on an annual basis, quarterly basis, or whatever, as the council's looking at its budget, you see how revenue's coming in, and so that's when you raise the flag, or staff raises the flag and say, you know, revenues aren't coming in. For instance, we noticed that there were certain, you know, funds not readily coming in a timely basis, so we simply just alternate and throttle our spending, if you will. That's part of the budgeting process. But the governing body has the full authorization to decide when it's going to pay itself, how it's going to pay itself.
All right, so you're going to determine the projects that we're going to take this, we're going to borrow this money for.
The taxpayers in this governing body's already established those projects, so.
Now, you're going to determine those projects and make a list for us, and we're going to pay those off, and then we're going to go back to the other part of it, or we're going to pay a little bit each year for a total for those projects.
This is only loaning yourself the initial money for the current. The only thing that you're authorizing is the current 2017 budget this time.
Which is how much?
So in this case, when you approve your budget, if you approve this resolution, it allows this governing body to go to its reserves and loan itself money to cover whatever it dictates in the budget as the 2017 Douglas SPLOST projects. So if you look in your budget, you'll see that we have assigned what staff believes to be the priority projects that need to move forward, and it's allocated funds accordingly. This governing body can alter that list or alter the amounts. So I hope I've answered that question. If not, let me know.
I don't want to obligate ourselves to something that we don't have the money to pay for in the bank. For instance, we obligate ourselves for $10 million and we got $6 million in the bank.
But you don't have 10 million of SPLOST coming in.
I'm just saying, I'm using those numbers. It doesn't.
Okay, all right, just want to make sure.
Yeah, just.
I've heard 10 million lots of times. We don't have 10 million in the bank.
We got 8 million. We obligate ourselves for $8 million in SPLOST. We only got 6 in the bank.
Yes.
What I heard is we're gonna only allocate enough for 2017 projects.
Right, the
According
2000,
to how much money we gonna get in from the SPOS.
Well, that's what I'm saying. How much is that?
I don't know.
well, we hadn't approved the budget yet, but I think what I hear the city manager saying is that in your budget, there are a number of SPLOST projects that are listed for Douglas County.
2017.
Right, in 2017. That's the amount of money that we're gonna loan ourselves from fund balance to start to get those projects, realizing that 1% is not gonna come in until the fall. This just allows us to move forward with those projects that we're gonna approve in the budget.
And as the money comes in, we're gonna pay back what we spent.
I don't have a problem.
That's just a small, that's not a big number, but that's only for 2017, and we know we're not gonna get a whole lot of SPLOST money in 2017.
Okay, before Tuesday, we'll find out that number.
And then if you look in the budget, there is when you look under the revenue section,
list of it.
there is a list of anticipated revenues for 2017. and then you see the difference of the total projects as fund balance. So that collectively, so it is broken out there, sir, already.
Okay.
Any other questions? Item 9, council appointments, Villa Rica Development Authority.
You have a number of appointments that are coming up with expiring terms. Specifically, the Villa Rica Development Authority, Mr. Dale Schwarzkopf's term is expiring December 31st, 2016. The Main Street Advisory Board, the terms expiring December 31st are Carl Peabody, Matthew Montham, and Michael Young. The indications that I've gotten is that all of these folks are seeking reappointment. The only one that I would caution you is if Mr. Young should be the person that should win the Ward 4 runoff, he'll have until his date of swearing in to resign that position, and then you will have the opportunity to appoint the unexpired term of that. But since it would be a new appointment anyway, so but you can either keep what you have or ask staff to advertise for new appointments.
We talk to these folks and they say yes again?
Yeah.
I just want to make a statement to Councilman McPherson. If we know as a staff that we have bad attendance on any of these boards, would you let us know? I heard a story that we didn't have enough people to form a quorum the other night for one of our boards, and that's problematic, especially for some of the boards, more so than others. But, for all of the boards, to her point, I mean, we have people in the community that would love to be on these boards and would love to be active. And if we've got folks that won't show up, then we'll, we need to deal with that.
And if we've still got openings, let us know that we've got openings, and we could be putting that out there a little bit more with people we know, that we need some more people on those boards. There's nothing like a personal invitation. Sometimes people, they'll thumb through, but when you say, hey, have you considered serving on this? It just helps.
Mr. Mayor, to your point, absolutely. I know this body has, has adopted the cemetery bylaws for the cemetery committee. I know that this governing body has adopted the zoning Board of Appeals bylaws. Each of the committee, I know the library board has the most current working draft of their bylaws, but basically in each of those, this governing body should be adopting those bylaws, and those should have those conditions, because they can't remove members, but certainly there's triggers in their bylaws, so that staff isn't policing, if you will. So we'll continue to work with the other bodies to make sure that their bylaws come forth before they go to the city attorney first for review and sort of hammer it, and then we'll make sure that they come forth before this board.
Thank you. Item 10, ho, ho, ho.
Ho, ho, ho.
If you will, Mr. Mayor, just one thing. Let's see. If you will refer to number 10 as year-end compensation adjustment. Just work with me there.
Year-end
Year-end. Where did I put
compensation.
Compensation adjustment. Yes, sir.
We say Christmas in Villa Rica.
I get that. I'm just giving you advice for in order to stay compliant with state law based on advice from the City Attorney Association.
Thank
Really, it's not supposed to be called what it says there?
I've gotten
Okay, so
clarification as to what it should be called, and
Say
I'm going to.
say what it's supposed to be called again.
I can put AKA.
YECA,
You're in what?
compensation adjustment.
Okay.
Yes, I'm going to put CYA Christmas bonuses right after.
Why
Okay.
didn't we hear that it was a problem other years?
Do y'all know what that stands for in the crowd? Enough, let's move on.
It's the YECA, we got it.
Along with his M&Ms.
I'm going to make a little broad statement here, then I'm going to turn it over to the person to my left. I was a city employee for almost 14 years, and we went through some really good years here in the city and some really bad years. And the city employees were always faithful. We are very blessed in this city to have the employees that we have. And I will make a promise that, as your mayor, that I will never try to balance the budget on the backs of the city employees here. If we have good city employees, then we need to compensate those employees and keep them here. If we had bad city employees, then we need to discipline those city employees and remove them from the payroll. So I just want to make that comment very plain, and so with that said, I will turn it over to Councilman Best.
Each year, at this time, just after Thanksgiving, we've tried to do some things for the employees of the city. In the past, we've given them $500 for the full-time employees, and for the part-time, full-time. And what that means is that a part-time person that works all year long, he works less than 29 hours a week, but he's considered part-time, full-time, and that means all year. We've given them half of that, which is $250. The issues come up. The reasoning why is obvious. Those folks are the ones that, a lot of them go out at 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and dig holes in the dirt and patch water lines and various things of that nature that it may be 20, 30 degrees. You know, we've had actually had one last week that was out at 4 o'clock in the morning fixing a water line. Those kind of things, those people need to be compensated, in my opinion, at this time of year. And this is about the time of giving, not anything but appreciating and giving. I will say that I think the staff here does a real good job of monitoring all the employees. I also think that this is based on the year evaluation every year. If they've not been evaluated between now and Christmas, they need to be evaluated. And if there is a positive evaluation for them, I think this amount of money should be made available to them. As I said, $500 for the full-time and $250 for the full-time, part-time.
Discussion?
I guess the question is, have they all been evaluated at this point, or we got some of them just started, or what?
All employees will have been evaluated by December 31st based on their annual evaluation timeframe. And then I have reiterated that. In fact, all supervisors have been sent a list. We've had some stragglers. I'll be the first to raise a hand and say, you know, even I'm a little behind. But every single employee, you know, if they were a trouble employee, I wouldn't have to worry about doing their evaluation. I'm going to say that right up front. We deal with those. We don't believe in surprises. We don't surprise employees. We deal with problems as they come up. So all employees will have been evaluated. This was the first year that we put in the new evaluation process, and so it we're wrapping it up. But yes, because it was also tied to the parity. So all that is going to be done and wrapped up by December 31st.
How long do they have to work here before they get evaluated?
You have to be here. You get an interim at 6 months, and then you get your annual at 1 year, sir.
So the bonuses wouldn't be going to anyone that had not been evaluated, right?
Correct.
So that would be any employee with less than 6 months service. Can I strike a deal, sir, with you?
That depends.
If they're a full-time employee but they've been here less than 6 months, can we just say $250 and just cut those in half and then say part-time, you know, $125? Because obviously we made good hires, and if we have a problem child during their probationary period, they don't stay with us. So if they're still with us, it's because they're a good, solid employee performing for us. Just sort of compromise, sir.
You have some still in the probationary period,
Yeah, we've got, folks, yeah, some,
so we don't really know.
even the police
problem
department
yet.
does. You know, I know the police chief, you know, if he's got a problem with him, he just shoots him, and he hadn't shot anyone lately, so, but they do tase them.
Or
They do
hit
tase
them with a car.
I think
Pardon me?
that's
Hit
all-
them with a car.
Hits him with a car.
I'll check.
But he only has one bullet, so he can't shoot with one employee, so.
It's all on audio and video. I'm just
I think
saying, they could
full-time-
just take that segment out and play
He
it on.
does shoot them.
WSD.
I've seen the games.
I think full-time, part-time is important. We have a lot of people, I think, if I'm not mistaken, last count I had was like 14, full-time, part-time people. I don't have a problem with the 6 month doing 250, but I still think the full-time, part-time need to be 250 as well.
I concur.
I mean,
We have a full-time, part-time person in the recreation department that's been here longer than, I think he has more tenure than anybody in the city now. Barry Evans, most people know him as Bear.
well, part-time,
Well,
permanent, that's fine.
Yeah,
Are you having trouble grabbing the net?
Yeah.
Full-time, part-time?
Well, and that's true. I mean, if, you know, they work less than 29 hours a week, and they are designed for that all year long. And the difference is the people that are under quote-unquote contract labor. Those are the folks that, rec department has most of them, and Pine Mountain has a few, I think. The ones that are associated with the rec are the scorekeepers, the people of that nature, timekeepers. Those are the ones that are part-time. They don't work up full-time, but you also understand that the full-time, part-time does not receive any benefits for the city.
On the bonuses,
Can't be a bonus.
on the, a second, I have it written down here somewhere. Got an
YECA.
abbreviation too. The what?
It's the yucca.
YECA.
Yeah.
YMCA, right?
Compensation adjustment. I went along very easily last year with the 500 because I think we've been neglectful in getting our people, especially people on the lower level, up to getting paid decently. We addressed it first with the police department. I think it's hard with the citizens, a lot of us who worked in the private sector at times. $500 would have been well, we didn't get that. I'm talking about private sector where it's private money. It's very easy for me to feel generous with other people's taxpayer money and say, look how generous I'm being. I'm using their money to give somebody a $500 bonus. So I'm not against bonuses per se. We were happy to get a turkey or a ham. What I'm most concerned about, I'm sorry, I keep using the word, well, you know, it's habit.
Call it yucca.
What I'm more concerned about is that we're rewarding them all year long with a decent wage for the job they're doing and that they're getting paid for their training and their certifications and everything else. And I'm glad we're addressing that. I know we haven't arrived yet. And my own personal opinion is that as we get there, where we've got people on that scale getting paid closer to what they should be getting paid, that we should come back down on those year-end adjustments to something more moderate, as often you see in the private sector.
I agree with you totally.
And in fact, it's interesting, Councilwoman, that you say that. As we migrate into the 5-year plan and we start to look at this, actually what I've noticed at some cities is that, and I've only done this, the mayor asked me to do some additional research, and so another city manager was doing the same research, so shared. As you get to that pay parity, other cities actually tier it based on your tenure and your seniority, so it actually is almost an incentive to stay longer with the city. So they do a tier as to the longevity with the city. So again, will the council, if that's something moving forward, once we get there, you all want me to address, then gladly to do so. Certainly, I know the employees are extremely thankful to just get a pat on the back, but certainly if you want to put something in their back pocket, they'll do a Snoopy dance. I won't, because you all pay my workman's compensation.
I think performance is a whole lot better than tenure. So, sometimes tenure they get kind of lazy.
Well, you'd hope not under a performance plan, but again, I mean, it's all up to you all what you decide. But can I reiterate to make sure I really understand what the proposal is? All right, so again, this is what I heard, but correct me. So $500 for all full-time employees, $250 for all regular part-time, meaning they're with. If it is a full-time employee who has been with us less than 6 months as of, we're going to have to figure a date, what, December 31st, December 25th?
Well, from the time he was hired.
All right, but I have to strike something because at some point I got to go out and do the bonuses. So can we say as of December 1st or
December 31st, end of the year.
something? Okay, so do you understand why I'm asking for the date? So if they are under 6 months as of December 31st, full-time, they get $250. If they are part-time and still under 6 months, what I heard was they still get $250.
Correct.
Okay, did I hear that correct?
As long as you understand what part-time, not, because I know we have part-time employees that just work 28 hours a week and they work seasonally. Those aren't the ones you're talking about. We're talking about permanent / 12-month part-time employees.
It should be about 14 of them.
Yeah, the seasonal folks are what we call our contract labor, or contractors. They were reclassified, if you recall, in the budget for legal reasons, and we actually have agreements with them. So they're actually not employees, they're actually contractors, even though they're seasonal.
When are they gonna get this, like she said, bonus, so to speak?
When are they going to get this YECA?
Excuse me?
Contracting with them.
When are they going to get the YECA?
Yes,
They're going to get it in the month of December before.
Well, why you gonna take that to the 31st?
The reason I was doing the December 31st is, okay, I need a frame for them to go in the system and say, everyone 6 months or less has to be in category. I don't want to arbitrarily just set a date and then have an employee say, oh, but on January 1st, I will be X. So I don't want to get and say, well, yeah, council said as of that date.
Okay.
That's why I did it.
Okay.
This is Madam Mayor Pro Tem, by the way.
Well, you weren't here. We also volunteered you for a few other things. We'll
That's
figure out
all
on
right.
that
That's
later.
all right. I can handle it.
Any further discussion?
You'll have to vote on that on Tuesday, by the way.
Okay. Lord, I hope there's not another page, because I see consent agenda review. Is there another page that I'm?
No, the consent agenda is now for you to go through and to decide what do you put on consent agenda for the Tuesday agenda, sir.
Gotcha.
But you do have another meeting right after this.
Well, I know that. That's why.
Oh, okay.
Oh, my Lord.
Do we have to do anything with the nugget drop anymore? Basically, you just needed a consensus, so we're not gonna, I mean.
All right, so if you'll work with me here, let's see. All right, so we start with A1, financial update has already been given. So normally that comes off for the regular meeting because it's a dupe.
What about the citizens? They don't get to hear it?
They can watch the video.
No, hopefully they listen. They should have come if they wanted to hear it.
Well, again, it has to be a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's got to be a 5-0. So
What's
there's
it
someone
take?
against it.
What is it, 5 minutes? I don't know. I think the people that come
5
to
minutes,
meetings
5 minutes,
should
5
hear the
minutes, 5 minutes.
financial update.
There you go. Leave it on the agenda.
All right, I got one out, so done. The policy, we're holding off on that, so we just marked through that.
We're going to delete that for Tuesday, huh?
Actually, I just marked through it because the document's not ready yet, but
Okay.
we're getting close.
Okay.
B1, we'll have a document for you. Does the council need anything additional other than voting to say they want to move to the next step? So you're all good? Okay, I'm going to circle that for consent. Nugget drop comes off.
Wait a minute, what did you say, move to go to level 3?
Yes.
I don't want to go to level 3. I never agreed to level 3.
Okay, that's what I wanted to understand.
Yep.
All right.
I think that's premature.
You talking about the drought, it will not be on consent agenda.
Okay, that's why we went, okay. All right, Villa Ruckus soil erosion, that's the one that the city attorney said you have to do?
Yep.
All right, So we'll put that consent, yes?
We can take that off because
What about the G dot north?
Yeah, North Loop,
we
number
vote,
two.
but we have no
That
choice.
was B2.
North Loop is,
Oh, it's strong.
I don't actually need a vote on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're gonna leave that off.
All right, so D1 is all good?
Mm-hmm.
All right, horse-drawn carriages, we agreed not to worry about that right now.
Right.
The alcohol is a consent agenda for the permitting.
Correct.
Now, the question is, you have the mayor pro tem over there.
You know how I vote, so just.
No, consent agenda. Keep it
Yeah, that's what I said.
Okay, all right, just want to make sure we're cool there, because she's not going to put her hand up when the consent comes up. Conditional use permit, the city attorney's going to come, so we're not going to put that on the consent. Street naming, okay with J. Crowder Drive,
Yep.
Absolutely.
And Loft and Bog,
all right?
right?
Loft Lane,
Yeah,
Yep.
Boggs Road,
yep.
okay.
That's spelled right,
Which one?
Clareball.
Just Boggs, B-O-G-G? No, it's not Boss, it's Boggs.
Name, it was named.
Larry's,
L-A-R-E-Y.
Got misspelled on the agenda.
Oh, that's a typo.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll fix.
Okay.
Madam Clerk, can you remember to tell me to fix Larry? Tell him that we've renamed him.
Yep.
Larry.
Larray.
Hooray. Oh, if it's L-E.
Okay, all right, the hotel motel tax resolution,
No, we're gonna hear that.
I hear that? Okay.
Yeah, because that's taxing
Yep.
people.
Hey, I'm just asking you, I gotta ask. The city attorney said the memorandum MOU won't be ready, the presentation's off.
But he was
they
gonna-
said that they
he-
wanted to reiterate, so
Yeah.
this stays on as
Yes.
the
Right.
presentation comes off. The intergovernmental agreement with Carroll County and Post 4?
I'll let you know tomorrow.
Shouldn't,
No, you gotta say yea or today on whether or not it's consent or not,
I kind of
so.
feel like that shouldn't be consent because it's $190,000 worth of taxpayer money. I
Well, you
feel
got
like
one
That's-
negative.
that's
I agree
fine.
with that.
it's
That's
not
fine.
like soccer
Leave it alone.
uniforms.
There's nothing for the mayor pro tem status, the attorney, I guess, gave that to you. Open records,
Oh, Mecklin said he had something to say about that.
No, that's not the one.
He said it.
no, he said it and walked out on you.
Okay.
The open records, resolution to,
Cut and dry.
Yeah, that is.
everybody cool? Yes? All right. All right, city charter is not, senior exemption's not, he's gonna make a presentation. Recreation, we're done with that. A resolution to fund the capital, projects, Douglas County portion of the SPOS.
Leave it on there.
Yeah.
Leave it on as an individual. And then you have your council appointments. Do you have any problem with any of those? You want to do it as a consent?
It depends on the vote.
Well, you
that's
still
true.
won't know. You can't. You can leave them off if you want, but you know, I want and I just move forward. And then if he gets it, let him resign.
Okay.
He'll be glad to resign.
Oh, it depends on.
I don't want
the
to speak
vote.
for him,
didn't
but
know
I
what
think he
was
would be.
talking about. Okay.
But so we yay, nay.
Consent agenda.
On appointments.
Everybody cool?
Yeah, I'm good.
And then holiday bonuses.
What'd you just
Gotta
call
vote
it?
on it.
I mean,
See?
Yeka.
Bonuses, not bonuses.
Yeka.
Gotta vote on it.
Yeah, I got to rename it. Got to vote on it as, so you want to do it individually, no consent?
No, I think people need to.
Yeah, we want to do that in the open, so we'll.
Okay,
Yes,
that's fine.
that's a.
All right, so for the record, I'm going to go back over this, so that we do this. And I appreciate y'all doing this. I know it takes a little time. So this is what staff has. D1, D3.
D1's consent agenda?
Yes, D1, D3.
Okay.
5, ABC.
Yep.
F4
Bingo.
and F9.
Yep.
All right, back to you, Mr. Mayor.
I would entertain, any further business? I would entertain a motion to
No,
Really have
sir.
to, this is work
do
session.
something. What are we doing?
At
Just
this
another
point, you gotta end the meeting, but now you go to a public meeting, so you officially have to call the next meeting. So basically, you say, okay,
This one's over.
we're done.
We're done,
Want to do a potty break, or you want to go 5 minutes?
please. Yes.
Harry, I'm right behind
Wait a minute, we got another meeting, you can't go nowhere.
you. We got to have a break.
Yeah, is that way I'm gonna sit through another meeting? Maybe it'll be a short one. We only have Larry to talk. Sherrill County SO?